Chapter 1796. Chu Liyue comforted Xue Xue for a while and carefully wiped the blood off its claws. She also promised that she would definitely get back at it in the future. Only then did Xue Xue become happy again and run around her. It had indeed been staying in the Yuntian Tower to cultivate during this period of time. It was not allowed to come out if it did not meet its master's requirements. Therefore, Chu Liyue had been here for a long time before it was finally free. After throwing those messy things to the back of its mind, Xue Xue became lively again. Chu Liyue simply brought it to the courtyard to play. This courtyard was not big, but to Xue Xue, as long as it was with Chu Liyue, it was always interesting. Seeing that there were many stones in the courtyard, it rushed over curiously and used its claws to fiddle with them. Dong! A stone next to it rolled down and landed on its hind legs. Xue Xue looked back with a blank expression. It did not move this stone. Why did it move by itself? It used its hind leg to push the stone away. In the end, a third stone rolled over. This time, the strength seemed to be a little stronger than before. Xue Xue was a little impatient. It waved its claws and kicked the stone away. However, in the next moment, the stone actually returned. It was heading straight for Xue Xue's face at an even faster speed. The sound of air being torn apart was sharp. Xue Xue was shocked and immediately turned to look. Only then did it see that when the stone flew over, it actually cut through the surrounding space, revealing a black space crack. Danger! Xue Xue immediately became vigilant. Suddenly, a clear and gentle voice sounded. Stop fooling around. It was Chu Liyue. After that, Xue Xue watched with her own eyes as the originally aggressive rock suddenly concealed all of its aura and fell to the ground with a clang. It looked no different from an ordinary stone. Just looking at it like this was really hard to imagine. A second ago, it was still full of killing intent, and the pressure from it made it tremble in fear. Xue Xue shook its head and looked again in disbelief. Those few stones had stopped. Everything just now was like an illusion. However, it did not really think that it was all fake. Chu Liyue walked over and grabbed Xue Xue's ear. There aren't many people here. With your appearance, it's inevitable that they'll be a little lively. Xue Xue was confused. Them? Who? Suddenly, its gaze froze. Wait, there aren't only these few stones around. Xue Xue turned her neck stiffly as a trace of shock flashed across her eyes. There seemed to be stones scattered everywhere in the entire courtyard. Moreover, it was very similar to the one that wanted to attack. Xue Xue instantly understood something as it looked up at Chu Liyue. Chu Liyue's lips curled. Xue Xue was smart, she did not intend to hide. If you feel bored, you can ask Tuanzi to practice with you. Xue Xue thought Xue's. Xue's. Recently, she vaguely felt that her body seemed to have changed a little, so she spent most of her time sorting out the meridians in her body. Besides, what was the point of fighting with Xue Xue? Presently, the number one enemy in her heart was Zichen. She could clearly sense that Zichen's strength had now faintly surpassed her own. She had to open her fifth meridian to have a chance of winning. Thinking of this, Tuanzi was full of energy and continued to practice. Chu Liyue did not know whether to laugh or cry. In fact, Dumpling's talent and strength could already be considered the best of the best. After all, in the entire Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, she was the only one who had opened her fourth meridian at such a young age. Originally, she was sure to win against Zichen. However, Zichen's luck was also heaven-defying. He was connected to Mao Zhen's qi and could be considered a real cheat. Even if he did not cultivate, as Mao Zhen's strength increased, his combat strength would also increase. Even Chu Liyue was envious of this kind of luck. If Dumpling wanted to win against him, it was equivalent to winning against Mao Jin. It was no wonder that she had been cultivating so diligently recently. By the way, have you told clan leader Yi Zhao and the others about what happened on Divine Dragon Island? Dumpling responded. Yes. She had the inheritance of her ancestors, so she could easily contact Yi Zhao and the others. As soon as they came out of Divine Dragon Island, Chu Luiyue reminded her to tell clan leader Yi Zhao and the others about what happened. Dumpling was a crimson gold sky phoenix and the young master of the clan. It was indeed a big deal for her to go to Divine Dragon Island directly. Instead of hearing random rumors from other places, clan leader Yi Zhao and the others might as well take the initiative to tell them. It would make them feel more at ease. I hope clan leader Yi Zhao and the others won't be angry. Chu Luiyue rubbed the space between his eyebrows. Tuanzi laughed loudly and said in a crisp voice, you, don't worry. Aren't we all fine and dandy? Why would Grandpa clan leader be angry? Chu Luiyue coughed and thought of Yi Zhao and the others looking at Dumpling with doting eyes. She felt even more guilty. She had promised to take good care of Dumpling before, but after leaving Phoenix Godly Mountain, she had been in constant trouble. First, it was the God-slaying tomb, then Divine Dragon Island. Fortunately, Dumpling was fine. Otherwise, Chu Luiyue really didn't know how to face clan leader Yi Zhao and the others in the future. When the wedding is over, I'll bring you back to Phoenix Godly Mountain to take a look. Although this trip didn't take too long, many things had happened in between. It was reasonable for him to go back and greet them. It could also be considered as a way of comforting them. Fortunately, the great Phoenix Dragon Clan's clan leader was Mao Jin now, so she didn't care so much about Dumpling. Otherwise, the problem would be more difficult to solve. Okay. Dumpling didn't think too much about it. When she heard that she could go back, she immediately won happily. A familiar voice sounded. Chu Luiyue looked up. Master, why are you here? She asked as she walked over. Nan Suwai waved his hand. I have nothing to do, so I wanted to come and see you. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows. Oh. She knew her master best. Since he was here, there must be a reason. Nan Suwai felt guilty under her gaze. He coughed a few times and finally gave in. All right. Actually, the reason why Master came over this time is because I have something to ask you. Chu Luiyue invited Nan Suwai to sit on a stone bench in the courtyard. Then, she smiled and asked unhurriedly. What do you want to ask, Master? Nan Suwai hesitated. After a long while, he raised his chin in a certain direction. Those few people, are all your subordinates. Chu Luiyue knew he was asking about Xin Yi and the others, so she nodded. That's right. Why? Did they get into trouble? Nan Suwai hurriedly waved his hand. Of course not. They don't know how to cause trouble like you. No, Master means, those few children don't look old, but their talents are not bad. Especially the youngest one, his physique seems to be quite good. Do you have any intention of letting him go to the academy? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1797. Chu Luiyue was stunned. She put down the cup of tea that had just reached her lips. She didn't expect her master to take a fancy to little 13. Her master's eyes were famous for being picky. Otherwise, he wouldn't have only taken her as his disciple after so many years. Being able to catch his eye was enough to prove that little 13 was indeed outstanding. Chu Luiyue thought for a while and didn't immediately agree. She asked, why did Master suddenly think of this? Have you already checked little 13's potential? Nan Suwai shook his head. Not yet. It's just that this child has been running all over the mountains these few days. Although he's young and is only a stage 6 warrior, his speed is comparable to a stage 9 warrior. Thinking about it, this child's physique should be pretty good. Originally, I did want to call him over to take a look. But since he's your disciple, I thought of asking for your opinion first. Chu Liuyue's lips curled up slightly. It's little 13's good fortune to be favored by Master. If he can really enter the academy to cultivate, it'll be a good thing for little 13. Please wait for a while, I'll call him over. She stood up and was about to call for him when she suddenly thought of something and asked, if little 13's conditions are good, does Master plan to take him as your disciple? Nan Su Hui shook his head. Of course not. It's enough for me to have you as my disciple. Besides, if he's really as good as I think, there's someone more suitable to be his master in the academy. Chu Luyue nodded in understanding. Little 13. She raised her voice slightly and shouted into the distance. Nan Su Hui was a little surprised. That child seems to be halfway up the mountain now. It's so far away, he can hear. Before he finished speaking, a thin figure of a young man quickly came from afar. He ran very fast and his movements were light and nimble. In the blink of an eye, he was already in front of Chu Luyue. Because he ran in a hurry, his forehead and the tip of his nose were covered in crystal-clear beads of sweat. A pair of pure and sincere eyes glowed with the unique youthful vigor of a young man. Chu Luyue's eyes swayed when she saw him. These few years, little 13 had really grown up. In her memory, he was still a child. Master, are you looking for me? Chu Luyue came back to his senses and nodded with a smile. Come here. With that, she returned to Nan Suhuai's side. Master thinks that your talent is not bad and wants to see your aptitude. If you pass, you can go to Lingxiao College to cultivate in the future. Chu Luyue said concisely. 13 was taken aback. He looked at Nan Suhuai, then at Chu Luyue. This means, he has been here for several days. Of course, he knew who the master was. He had also heard of the other party's identity. He just didn't expect that it would be related to him. When Chu Luyue saw that he was stunned, he thought that he had startled the child. He laughed again and said, 13, what are you waiting for? Stretch out your hand. 13 obediently stretched out his hand. Nan Suhuai put 2 fingers on 13's wrist. Then, he separated a strand of origin power and sent it into 13's Yuan meridian. A moment later, a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. Chu Luyue asked, Master, how is it? Nan Suhuai didn't answer the question immediately. He just withdrew his hand, stood up, walked to 13's side, and squeezed his shoulder. 13 looked at Chu Luyue helplessly. Chu Luyue gave him a reassuring look. 13 then continued to sit there quietly, allowing Nan Suhuai to squeeze his shoulder, arm, and other bones. After a while, Nan Suhuai stopped. At this moment, the way he looked at 13 was very different from before. Master, how is it? Chu Luyue felt a little guilty when she saw his reaction. Can 13 enter the Lingxiao College to cultivate? Of course, she hoped that 13 could do better. Nan Suhuai paused for a long time before he turned to Chu Luyue. His expression was serious, but there was a smile in his eyes. If he can't enter the Lingxiao College, then I'm afraid not many people in the world can do it. That means he passed. Chu Luyue's worried heart suddenly relaxed, and her lips curved up into a bright smile. Really? Can't be more real. Do you think I'll lie to you? Nan Suhuai also smiled. He stroked his beard and said emotionally, I didn't expect you to have such a good seedling by your side. He has the Tianjing Yuan meridian. And his physique is special. He's a natural martial artist. Chu Luyue was stunned by Nan Suhuai's words. She didn't know that 13 had such a top talent. She widened her eyes slightly and looked at 13. 13 blinked his eyes. His expression was pure and innocent, and there was a hint of confusion in his eyes. He seemed to be at a loss of what to do with the situation in front of him. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath. 13, why didn't you tell me before? 13 hesitated for a moment and said, I don't know about this, Nan Suwai asked curiously. You have such a good cultivation talent, but you haven't done any related tests before? 13 shook his head. Chu Luiyue just remembered that 13 really didn't check on this. When she found 13, he was still very young. It was snowing heavily in the Imperial capital and it was bone-chilling. He was only wearing a thin layer of clothing and was curled up in a corner, covered in filth. At that time, she just ordered the servants to bring him some food and clothes before leaving. However, after walking for a long distance, she realized that the child had been following her at a distance that was neither too far nor too close. At that time, she was very surprised. Because her carriage was very fast. Even a real cultivator might not be able to keep up with it, let alone a child. But the child's body was thin and weak, but his footsteps were very fast. He easily kept up with her. Most importantly, he followed them silently, as if he was invisible. If she didn't notice that something was wrong and found him later, no one would have noticed his existence. Chu Luiyue felt that this child was very interesting, so she brought him back. Originally, she wanted to see what his talent and aptitude was like, but many things happened at the time. She was busy dealing with them and didn't have the time to do this. Instead, she threw him to Tsinyi and asked him to take care of him. Later, when she was free, she thought of 13 and asked Tsinyi about him. Tsinyi said that 13 was quite talented and suggested that Chu Luiyue take him in and let them nurture him well. Chu Luiyue agreed without much hesitation. Since then, 13 became the youngest member of the 13U Guard. Chu Luiyue pursed her lips. Tsinyi should know about 13's situation. Why didn't he say anything? Nan Suwai stroked his beard and sighed. Even if this child goes to Lingxiao College, he will definitely be one of the best among the geniuses there. Chu Luiyue nodded and was about to speak when 13 took the initiative to speak. Master, can I not go to the college? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1798. The entire courtyard fell silent for a moment. Chu Luiyue was stunned for a while before she understood what 13 meant. He said, he didn't want to go to Lingxiao College. Nan Suwai was also a little confused. He had never encountered such a situation before. In the world of divine ruins, countless geniuses worked hard to cultivate in the hope of entering Lingxiao College. Many people saw this as the glory of their lives and that of their entire family. It was no exaggeration to say that Lingxiao College was indeed the highest school that all the geniuses in the world flocked to. They had always been the ones to choose people, and they had never been rejected like this. 13, you've just arrived in the world of divine ruins, so you probably don't know what Lingxiao College means. Chu Luiyue sorted out her thoughts and felt that 13 was still a little young and didn't consider things thoroughly. That was why he said such words. She looked at 13 and said seriously, 13, this is an extremely rare opportunity. Many people want to enter the college but don't have the qualifications. She really didn't want 13 to miss this great opportunity. 13 shook his head. Master, I know all this. Before he came, his big brother and the others had already told him a lot about the world of divine ruins. Lingxiao College was the college where his master studied, so of course, they had done a lot of research. He really didn't want to go. I know, it's my honor to be appreciated by the dean. But I've gotten used to following Big Brother and the others all these years. I think it's pretty good. 13 paused and took a deep breath as if he had mustered up his courage. I don't want to leave Big Brother and the others, and I don't want to leave you. In another courtyard of Changi Mountain, Wu Yao was practicing boxing. Little Hachi was applying nail polish. Yu Jiu was waving a wooden sword. Shi Fang was plowing the ground. A few days ago, he had started farming as soon as he arrived. Now, fresh and green sprouts had already grown on the ground. It's the most reassuring to eat the vegetables you grow yourself. Shi Fang straightened his back and sighed. He had a bad habit of only eating the vegetables he grew. During this period of time, he had been busy running around and didn't have time to do these. The ones he brought from home were almost finished. It would take another month for the newly planted ones to ripen. Shi Fang could only struggle to get by. But when he saw these fresh shoots, his mood improved a lot. Little Hachi glanced at him. You're even more pretentious than me. According to Shi Fang's present realm, even if he ate one meal a month, it was nothing much. However, he was very stubborn and had to eat it every day. Moreover, if it wasn't planted by him, he would rather starve to death than eat it. Spoiled. Shi Fang didn't mind. He wiped the sweat off his forehead and smiled. Sister 8, every time I cook, you never miss a meal. Little Hachi glared at him. No one will think you're a mute if you speak less. Wu Yao had just finished a set of punches. When he heard this, he couldn't help but ask, can't all of you just stop for a day? Bickering every day. Even if you guys aren't tired of it, my ears are about to grow calluses. Both of them ignored him. However, Yu Jiu interrupted. Fifth brother, you can't persuade anyone anyway. Why do you have to do this every time? Wu Yao's eyebrows twitched. Practice your swordsmanship well. Yu Jiu didn't mind. She put away her sword and chuckled. What a coincidence. I've also finished practicing. Wu Yao couldn't be bothered with her. Yu Jiu walked to the chair next to her and immersed herself in it. Let's not talk about anything else. The heaven and earth energy here is abundant. It's quite suitable for cultivation. Oh right. He suddenly thought of something and stood up abruptly. 13 was called over by Master just now. What was it for? At that time, he was focused on practicing his swordsmanship, so he didn't pay much attention. Little Hachi changed her fingernails. Oh, it seems that Master's master has taken a fancy to him. This kid has been jumping up and down happily these past few days. He didn't restrain himself at all. So, he was seen by others. Yu Jiu nodded, but she was a little worried. This means. Does that person want to take him in as a disciple? But he's Master's master. This isn't appropriate, right? That's not likely. However, there's an 80% chance that 13 will go to Lingxiao College. Wu Yao also walked over. Let's see what that kid says. Little Hachi scoffed. What's there to worry about? 13 is smart. Will he agree to go to Lingxiao College? That's true. It was rare for Shi Fang to agree with Little Hachi's words. He nodded. If he agrees, then we'll have taught a fool. At this moment, Tsini walked out of the room. The few of them instantly straightened up. Big brother. Tsini stood with his hands behind his back. His narrow and indifferent gaze swept across the few of them. He said calmly, 13 has his own opinions. Let him do whatever he wants. On the other hand, don't forget where you are. Be more vigilant about what you can and can't say. The few of them looked solemn. Yes. Tsini nodded. He actually didn't care about the few of them. Ever since that incident with Master, they were much more vigilant about everything. Also, if you hear any unpleasant words these few days, ignore them. We'll discuss them after Master's wedding. At this point, he glanced meaningfully at Little Hachi. Little Hachi could only raise her hand helplessly. Got it. Can't you see that I haven't been going out these few days? There were a few times when she heard some people sneaking around and almost hit them. In the end, she decided to just stay in Changi Mountain. Out of sight, out of mind. Only then did Xin-Yi nod in satisfaction. Everyone, continue with your work. After Xin-Yi finished speaking, he glanced into the distance again before retracting his gaze and returning to the room. After 13 finished speaking, the entire courtyard fell silent again. Chu Luiyue didn't know what to say for a moment. She could tell that 13 was speaking from the bottom of his heart. Lingxiao College might be full of temptation to others and was a holy land that they yearned for. However, this was clearly not the case for 13. She paused and wanted to persuade him again. 13, have you thought it through? If you go to Lingxiao College, you'll only be cultivating. It doesn't mean that you'll leave us. After all, I'm also a student of the college, right? Once such an opportunity was missed, it wouldn't come again. However, 13's expression gradually became determined. He stared at Chu Luiyue and shook his head. Chu Luiyue suddenly felt a headache coming on. If it were little Hachi and the others, she would just give the order directly. However, 13 was still a child. Nan Su-Hui sighed and smiled in relief. Forget it. It seems that this child isn't fated to be with Lingxiao College. There's no need to force it. Also, his talent doesn't seem to have been delayed. His cultivation progress is quite good. He should have a good master. Chu Luiyue tapped her finger lightly on the stone table. 13 naturally didn't have a master. He had always been brought up by Xin-Yi and the others. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1799. Nan Su-Hui left with some regret. Before he left, he even reminded Chu Luiyue that 13 was indeed a good seedling and must be nurtured well in the future. Actually, Nan Su-Hui said this out of consideration for Chu Luiyue. After all, 13 was her subordinate. If he developed well, it would naturally be the best for her. 13 was still young and could not be seen clearly. Once he grew up, he would definitely not be underestimated. Chu Luiyue brought 13 and personally sent him out. When Nan Su-Hui's figure gradually disappeared into the distance, Chu Luiyue turned around and quietly looked at 13. 13 was a little nervous under her gaze and unconsciously lowered his head. Master, did I do something wrong just now? He asked nervously. Chu Luiyue looked at him. Follow me into the room. With that, she turned around and walked into the room. Shui Shui, you go back first. Shui Shui, who originally wanted to follow, looked a little disappointed when it heard this. It scratched its head and looked at her back reluctantly for a while. Oh. It would come back later. 13 hesitated for a moment, but still followed. In the room, Chu Luiyue sat calmly. 13 stood not far in front of her, his hands clenched nervously. He lowered his head slightly and looked up at Chu Luiyue from time to time. 13, you did nothing wrong. After a long silence, Chu Luiyue spoke. But this did not make 13 relax. In his memory, his master had never spoken to him with such an expression and tone. He knew what it meant when he rejected Nan Su-Hui's suggestion, so he still felt uneasy. Although Lingxiao College is a place that many people dream of going to, it does not mean that it is the same for everyone. You have your own reasons for not wanting to go. In the past, I have never forced you to do anything, and naturally, I won't now. It's just that. She paused for a moment. Her gaze was as sharp as a knife as it swept past 13. I am a little surprised that you are so talented. 13 became more and more uneasy. I'm to blame for this. I should have paid attention to it back then, but I didn't know until now. From a certain point of view, she had neglected 13. 13 hurriedly said, "No. This has nothing to do with Master. 13 should have taken the initiative to tell you." Chu Lue smiled. "Actually, it doesn't matter now. The most important thing is that your talent hasn't been delayed." On this point, she and her master had the same view. For a cultivator to become an expert, many factors were needed. Talent was the undisputed first condition. However, this did not mean that you would definitely be able to grow if you had talent. Without the guidance of a good master, without enough patience and perseverance, no matter how good one's talent was, it would be wasted. Fortunately, 13 was not delayed. Hearing her say this, 13 was finally relieved. "How does Tsinyi usually teach you?" Chu Lue suddenly changed the topic and asked. 13 was stunned. "Big brother just gave me a few books and told me to comprehend them myself. Then, he told me to run. Big brother said that when I can run faster than him, I'll be able to help you." The corner of Chu Liuyue's mouth twitched. "Did Tsinyi really tell you that?" 13 nodded honestly. Chu Luyue cursed inwardly. Tsinyi was indeed as cunning as before. He even lied to a child. What realm was he at? What realm was 13 at? Who knew how much effort and time it would take for 13 to catch up to him? She asked him to take good care of 13, but he just painted a big picture for the child to see. Chu Luyue rubbed her glabella. 13 continued. "Also, during those few years, Big Brother wasn't around. I've been following 5th brother and 10th brother." Chu Luyue suddenly recalled that Tsinyi and Shijing had indeed stayed in Dahuang Swamp for a long time in order to help her guard the 9-colored heavenly pheasant. Thinking about it this way, 13 had been through quite a lot. It was really rare for him to be able to grow to his current state in such a chaotic situation. Chu Luyue thought for a moment and asked again. "Who else knows about your talent?" 13 hesitated for a moment and said softly, "Other than Big Brother and the others, no one else." In other words, everyone else in the 13U guard knew about this, but she, the master, was the only one who didn't know anything. Chu Luyue took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and waved her hand. "Go back and call Tsinyi over." Tsinyi soon arrived. After he pushed open the door and entered, Chu Luyue glanced behind him. 13 didn't follow him. Tsinyi said, 13 hasn't finished his planned journey today, so I let him go first. Chu Luyue nodded. She had already asked everything that she should have asked. The remaining question should still be with Tsinyi. "You knew about his talent long ago. Why didn't you say anything?" Chu Luyue went straight to the point. Tsinyi's expression was calm. "In the beginning, I wanted to tell you, but I couldn't find the right time. Moreover, at that time, his health wasn't very good. I thought that I would tell you about this after his condition stabilized. I didn't expect that too many things would happen later on, so it dragged on until now." Chu Luyue was stunned. Tsinyi's words weren't without reason. "But, you should have told me about such an important matter earlier. If I had known earlier." "Master, you don't have to worry. 13's cultivation has been very smooth all these years. Although I didn't tell you in time, it's not too late for you to know now, right? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network." Chapter 1800. Chu Luyue was speechless for a moment. She leaned against the back of the chair, her eyes drooping as she fell into deep thought. After a while, she smiled helplessly. "You're right." She never doubted Tsinyi's loyalty to her. So even if Tsinyi didn't do things according to her wishes, she wouldn't be angry or worried. Sun Yi was extremely intelligent. Many times, it was indeed his existence that helped Chu Luiyue avoid a lot of trouble. He was right. No matter when she found out about this, it didn't have much of an impact. Under their care, 13 still grew up well. The current him was already so outstanding that even her picky master wouldn't hesitate to praise him. That was already enough. Chu Luiyue looked up at Sun Yi. Sun Yi stood there quietly, looking at her with a calm expression. His eyes were calm and composed. Take good care of 13 in the future. Sun Yi smiled and bowed. Yes. Time quickly came to the day before the wedding. According to the rules, the two who were about to get married couldn't meet each other on this day. 36 respected Elder Ming came over with his men. His Highness the Saint ordered several embroiderers to rush through the night to make this. It took a full 3 months before it was finally completed. 36 respected Elder Ming put down the meticulously carved agarwood box and looked at Chu Luiyue lovingly. Does your Highness want to open it to take a look? Chu Luiyue seemed to feel something surging in her heart. She gently brushed her hand over the box and shook her head. Rong Xiao naturally gave me the best. This thing was so precious that she didn't even dare to open the box to take a closer look. Logically speaking, the bride's mother should be in charge of the wedding dress. But her mother had already passed away and couldn't do so. Rong Xiao helped her with all these things and didn't make things difficult for her at all. So much time had passed in the blink of an eye since they had pledged their love to each other. Chu Luiyue suddenly felt very emotional. The outside was already bustling with noise and excitement. There were lanterns and colored banners everywhere, and the atmosphere was jubilant. The entire Yuntian Tower seemed to be immersed in a sea of joy. He had prepared this grand celebration for her. 36 revered Elder Ming looked kindly at Chu Luiyue and suddenly said, "Actually, this old man has a few words to say to your Highness. Is it convenient for Princess Consort?" Chu Luiyue came back to her senses and smiled. "Respected elder, you're treating me like an outsider by calling me that. Just call me you, 36 respected Elder Ming's gaze became even gentler. Good. In the future, he would still address her as such in private. Seeing that Chu Luiyue had agreed, he waved his hand and dismissed his entourage. Soon, only the two of them were left in the room. Chu Luiyue knew that what he was going to say had something to do with Rong Xiao. Please take a seat. If you have anything to say, just say it. You will listen. 36 respected Elder Ming nodded, walked to the window, and sat down. You come and sit too. Chu Luiyue walked over and sat opposite 36 respected Elder Ming. 36 respected Elder Ming carefully sized up the girl in front of him. She was extremely beautiful and devastatingly beautiful. Her eyes were as bright as the galaxy. They were pure and sincere, and there was a rare calmness. Such a girl should be the most compatible with him. Actually, this old man didn't like you very much at the beginning. 36 respected Elder Ming smiled and threw out these words. Chu Luiyue's gaze was calm. She knew that 36 respected Elder Ming wanted to say more than this. 36 respected Elder Ming blinked when he saw that she was so calm. Why do you look like you're not worried at all? Chu Luiyue's lips curled up slightly. You also said that it was at the beginning. If you still don't like me now, you wouldn't be telling me all this here, right? This girl is too smart. It's indeed not easy to fool her. 36 respected Elder Ming suddenly felt defeated. These two, one was harder to deal with than the other. However, he quickly adjusted his emotions and narrowed his eyes, as if he was recalling something. You should know a little about Her Highness' background. Chu Luiyue nodded. Back then, her mother went out to train and accidentally met that man. She fell deeply in love with him. She knew that the people in the clan would definitely object to her finding a man with such a lowly background, so she privately pledged her life to him. She thought that she had found her true love, but she didn't know that the man was Emperor Yao Qin, and he already had a harem of 3,000. Since then, she was disheartened, and her health deteriorated day by day. In the end, before she died, she exhausted all her strength and hid Her Highness' identity. She thought that this would be foolproof, but she didn't expect that the people in the clan never gave up looking for her. Although she was gone, they still found Her Highness very quickly. At that time, everyone in the Yuntian Tower hated this matter to the core. They even felt ashamed of Her Highness' existence and planned to directly execute Her Highness. Fortunately, Her Highness summoned the infinite divine dial and displayed the most powerful bloodline power in the Yuntian Tower in the past 1,000 years. From then on, no one in the Yuntian Tower mentioned killing Her Highness anymore. At this point, 36 respected Elder Ming's face revealed a trace of gratification, but it was quickly replaced by pity. However, this was only the beginning. Her Highness came from a special background and had no foundation. For a long time, she was bullied in the Yuntian Tower. Although I could help her, I couldn't go too far. Otherwise, it would only attract more jealousy and hatred. Time passed day by day, and she gradually grew up. I don't know when it started, but she became cold, bloodthirsty, and crazy. That's when his nickname, God of Slaughter, came into being. 36 respected Elder Ming let out a long sigh. Although her strength increased day by day, her temperament seemed to become colder and colder. Sometimes, it even made people wonder if she had already cut off all her emotions and desires and became a puppet that only knew how to kill. Chu Liuyue's heart also moved slightly. Although she had some understanding of these matters before, today was the first time she had heard a complete description. Even though many years had passed, and even Rongxiu himself mentioned it, she didn't care much. When she heard it, her heart still throbbed with pain. At this point, 36 respected Elder Ming looked at Chu Liyue. Fortunately, Her Highness met you later. Chu Liyue pointed at herself. Me? Yes, you. 36 respected Elder Ming seemed to have sunk into a distant memory. I remember that a few years ago, Her Highness went out to train alone and didn't return for a long time. When I heard news of Her Highness again, she was already a student of Lingxiao College. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1801. Chu Liuyue's heart skipped a beat. She and Rongxiu had indeed met before going to Lingxiao College. At that time, she had just finished her training in the Dahuang Swamp and came to the Divine Ruins world by chance. In the end, she met Rongxiu directly. At that time, the two of them were being hunted down. In a moment of desperation, they chose to join forces. After a while, they got to know each other. After that, she said that she wanted to go to Lingxiao College to cultivate. Rongxiu agreed almost without hesitation. Chu Liyue subconsciously thought that Rongxiu was like her, going to Lingxiao College. After all, although she was not familiar with the Divine Ruins world at that time, she had stayed in the Dahuang Swamp for so long and heard a lot of relevant things. Lingxiao College was the top college in the Divine Ruins world. Who wouldn't yearn for it? Actually, at that time, the people at Yuntian Tower didn't know of your existence. They only thought that His Highness wanted to go to the college to cultivate. It wasn't until later when His Highness said that he wanted to return to Yao Qin that I realized that something was wrong. At this point, 36 respected Elder Ming paused for a moment. You should know that His Highness doesn't have any feelings for Yao Qin. If not for a special reason, he definitely wouldn't go back. Before that, Rongxiu had always claimed that he was ill and recuperating at Mingyue Tianshan. In reality, he had only stayed at Mingyue Tianshan for a very short period of time. Most of the time, he still stayed in the Divine Ruins world. And that time, His Highness didn't return for a long time. Later on, this old man met you. At first, he only thought that His Highness was infatuated with a woman, so he was a little unhappy. But later, he realized that it was precisely because of this woman that His Highness started to become like a normal person. He had 7 emotions and 6 desires, and he was tied down and lovesick. At that time, 36 respected Elder Ming thought that this woman was definitely not ordinary. It wasn't until later that he finally had the opportunity to meet Chu Luiyue. At first sight, he fell in love with this girl. She was intelligent, quick-witted, and pure. He had met countless people in his life, and his eyes were very sharp. After meeting Chu Luiyue, he liked him very much. That was why he gave him so many gifts. All these years, this old man has never seen your highness spend so much effort on anyone else. Except for you. All his joys and sorrows were probably caused by her alone. Your highness has suffered a lot in the past and has almost no one close to you. Now that you've met a woman who's in love with you, it's really rare. In the future, I hope that the two of you can grow old together. 36 respected Elder Ming gently patted Chu Luiyue's hand and said solemnly. Chu Luiyue's nose tingled slightly, but a smile bloomed on his lips. All right. After 36 respected Elder Ming left, Chu Luiyue sat quietly in his room for a long time. By the time he recovered from his shock, he caught sight of the agarwood box by the side, and his heart skipped a beat. She stood up and walked over. There was no lock on the box, but there was a totem of the Yuntian Tower on the top. Chu Luiyue thought for a while, and put the universe ring in her hand on it. The totem dissipated. Chu Luiyue reached out and opened the box. What entered her eyes was a stretch of red that was as intense and elegant as flames. It was like a piece of red cloud in the evening sky that was meticulously woven. It was soft and light to the touch, and there was a faint flicker of golden light. It was gorgeous, solemn, and moving. The phoenix coronet's craftsmanship was complicated, as if it was meticulously carved by the heavens. There was a golden phoenix spreading its wings and flying, and a bright red jade bead in its mouth. It was sparkling and translucent, and the quality was excellent. The tassels on both sides hung down, adding to the beauty and gentleness. Chu Luiyue's hand gently brushed across the phoenix coronet, and a thought suddenly appeared in her mind. She was really going to marry Rongxiu. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1802. Chu Luiyue slept soundly that night. She even had a long dream. In her dream, most of the time, she and Rongxiu met, got to know each other, and fell in love with each other. Those scenes kept flashing in her mind. Every scene was so vivid that it seemed like it happened yesterday. At this moment, Chu Luiyue realized that she and he were more than 10,000 miles apart. But in the end, they were still together. People who were destined to be together would always hold each other's hands tightly no matter what. Early in the morning, there was a knock on the door. Lu Yu. Lu Yu. Chu Luiyue was already awake. When she heard the voice, she knew that it was Mu Hongyu. She walked over and opened the door. Mu Hongyu rushed in excitedly. When she saw that Chu Luiyue still had her hair down, her eyes widened slightly. Lu Yu, why haven't you started to dress up? Chu Luiyue smiled helplessly. What's the hurry? Because she and Rongxiu were both in Yuntian Tower, and Changi Mountain was not far from Duming Peak, they could save a lot of tedious procedures. Moreover, the wedding ceremony would officially start at noon. There were still a few hours to go. Mu Hongyu thought about it and agreed. But maybe because it was her first time attending her best friend's wedding, she was very excited. Her heart was beating wildly, and she could not calm down. But you still have to prepare early. Washing up, dressing up, changing into the wedding dress. These will take a lot of time. As Mu Hongyu nagged, she forcefully pulled Chu Luiyue to the dressing table and pressed her down on the chair. Today is your wedding, Lu Yu. Of course, you have to dress up. You have to be the most beautiful bride. Mu Hongyu looked at Chu Luiyue's soft hair. Her face was flushed, and her almond-shaped eyes were bright. Let me help you. After saying that, she prepared to attack. However, Mu Hongyu soon discovered a crucial problem. She didn't seem to know how to do her hair. Normally, she would tie her hair up simply, but on such a grand occasion, it was obviously not possible. Sigh. I've been studying it for a long time. She had spent a lot of time on this, but when it came to this, she realized that she wasn't skilled enough. If something went wrong, Pucci. A delicate laugh rang out, accompanied by the crisp sound of broken jade beads colliding against each other. Let me handle this matter. Chu Luiyue and Mu Hongyu turned around and saw little Hachi walking over with a smile on her face. She naturally took the wooden comb from Mu Hongyu's hands. Her voice was soft and charming, almost able to make people's bones melt. Little girl, watch carefully. Mu Hongyu was stunned. The other party didn't seem to be much older than her, but her charm was too strong. Comparing the two, the difference was indeed quite big. Mu Hongyu nodded subconsciously and obediently said, "Oh." Little Hachi looked at her with a smile, then reached out and pinched Mu Hongyu's cheek. Good girl. Mu Hongyu had never been teased by a woman like this before. She immediately blushed. Chu Luiyue looked at little Hachi speechlessly. She was indeed attractive to both men and women. Little Hachi looked away and stared at Chu Luiyue in the mirror. Then, her lips curved into a smile. Master, don't worry. No one is more beautiful than you today. After saying that, she began to help Chu Luiyue comb her hair. Little Hachi's soft and silky hair seemed to be particularly obedient in her hands. She didn't see how she did it, but her fair and delicate fingers moved back and forth, and the luxurious and beautiful hairstyle gradually took shape. Little girl, bring me the phoenix coronet. Little Hachi said gently. Mu Hongyu reacted and quickly responded. Chu Luiyue pointed to the location. Mu Hongyu walked over and opened the wooden box. Soon after, she sucked in a breath of cold air. Lu Yu, this phoenix coronet, is too beautiful. She had seen many treasures and jewelry, but none of them could be compared to this phoenix coronet. There was no way to describe it in words. The moment it entered her eyes, the only feeling it gave her was, beautiful. There was even a trace of shock. Yuntian Tower was indeed a first-class family. This gift was indeed extraordinary. Mu Hongyu sighed as she carefully took out the phoenix coronet and handed it to Chu Luiyue. Little Hachi glanced at it, and a satisfied smile appeared on her face. This was the only thing that was worthy of her master. She didn't hurry to help Chu Luiyue put it on. Instead, she asked her to change into the wedding dress. This time, it was Mu Hongyu who carefully took out the wedding gown. After experiencing the baptism of the phoenix coronet, Mu Hongyu's mental endurance had increased a lot. After she helped Chu Luiyue change, she covered her mouth and tried her best not to scream. However, her eyes, which were full of amazement, betrayed her feelings at this moment. Little Hachi raised her eyebrows proudly and began to put on Chu Luiyue's makeup. She was very skillful with her hands, and this kind of thing was a piece of cake for her. Moreover, Chu Luiyue was very beautiful. After a while, little Hachi looked at Chu Luiyue's face with satisfaction. That's right. Of course, on the wedding day, she had to be the most beautiful. Then, little Hachi took the phoenix coronet and carefully helped Chu Luiyue put it on. Mu Hongyu couldn't help but say, Lu Yu, I have never seen anyone more beautiful than you. Chu Luiyue looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyebrows were slightly raised, her eyes were like stars, and her red lips were slightly red. She was dressed in a red wedding dress that was like clouds and rosy clouds. She was elegant and beautiful. For a moment, she was in a trance. Indeed, even she had never seen herself like this. At this moment, a low and pleasant voice came from outside. I have come to pick you up. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1803. It was a voice that she was very familiar with. Chu Luiyue suddenly came back to her senses and turned her head to look. At this time, the door was closed, but it was already lively outside. The sound of ritual music came faintly and lingered in her ears. She heard the laughter of many people. But in the noise of this world, only his voice was the clearest. He said that he had come to pick her up. Chu Luiyue stood up and walked towards the door. She put her hand on the door. It was slightly cold to the touch, but her palm was boiling hot. She took a deep breath and gently pushed the door open. Bright sunlight surged in an instant. She narrowed her eyes slightly and saw a face that could not be more familiar. She was slightly stunned. Today, Rongxiu was wearing a red robe, which was rare. A black jade belt around his waist easily outlined his waist, making his shoulders wider and his waist narrower, and his figure more slender. His face, which had always been like a banished immortal, seemed to be stained with the smoke and fire of the mortal world at this time, and was not as cold as before. Everyone was silent for a moment. Rongxiu's eyes also flashed with a touch of blazing amazement. The woman in the red wedding dress walked out from behind the door. There was a beauty, clear and graceful. She could topple a city with one look, and then a country with another. It was probably, talking about such a beauty, right? In fact, many people present had seen Chu Luiyue before. She had an extremely beautiful appearance, but most of the time, she was barefaced. Now, she was wearing a phoenix coronet and a robe, which made people feel that she was a different person. There was actually such a woman in this world. When she appeared, everything around her seemed to dim. Only she was lively, bright, and extremely bright. The so-called disaster was probably nothing more than this. Or, a fairy with such an appearance should not have come to the mortal world in the first place. A year of silence. Everyone held their breaths and focused, as if they were afraid that they would disturb someone if they spoke. Chu Luiyue blinked. In an instant, it seemed that thousands of stars were surging. Rongxiu. She called out softly. Rongxiu stared at her as if he wanted to carve her appearance into his heart. The scorching heat almost made Chu Luiyue's entire body burn. After a while, he finally reached out his hand. Chu Luiyue looked at his hand. His palm was thick and strong, and his palm was covered with a thin layer of calluses. Only she knew how warm that hand was. She reached out her hand. Almost immediately, Rongxiu held her hand tightly. It was as if he was afraid that the person in front of him would disappear in the blink of an eye. It wasn't until he confirmed the soft and delicate temperature in his hand that he finally relaxed. He suddenly leaned over and whispered in her ear. You is truly, extremely beautiful. Chu Luiyue's face was slightly hot, but there was also an indescribable steadiness and warmth in his heart. Finally. I'm beside him. Rongxiu held her hand tightly. You come with me. The wedding ceremony was held in the ethereal hall. At this moment, the ethereal hall was already filled with guests. Almost all the people from the various clans and sects in the Divine Ruins world were gathered here. They were all waiting for the two main characters of the wedding. In the innermost seats were Shengguan Jing, Shengguan Yu, Chu Ning, and 36 respected elder Ming. When the crowd saw this, they couldn't help but discuss. Shouldn't the seats at the top be reserved for the elders of the Holy Sun and the princess consort? Why is the one sitting there 36 respected elder Ming? I don't even recognize the few people beside him. Haven't you heard? After that commotion, the clan head of the Yuntian Tower fell into a coma a few days after returning. He hasn't woken up yet. We all know what kind of background this Holy Sun has. Since the clan head is unconscious, the only one qualified to sit here is 36 respected elder Ming. After all, he has been treating the Holy Sun like a teacher and father all these years. What you said makes some sense. But the three people beside him. Where are they from? Could they be the princess consort's family? It's a long story. Do you see the one in the middle? That's the famous Shangguan Jing. A true weapon refining venerable. I heard that he's the princess consort's Taizu. And the other two seem to be the princess consort's fathers. I've heard that the princess consort of the Yuntian Tower was born in the Tianling dynasty outside the Divine Ruins world. But after a few twists and turns, she came to the Divine Ruins world with great difficulty. Since these two are her fathers, it's normal for them to sit here together. Normal. The one on the left is still alright. He's a demigod, but the one on the right is only a stage 4 warrior. It's difficult for such a person to see us normally. But now, he's sitting in front of us and is more honorable than us. This princess consort is really amazing. You can't say that. Do you see the old man beside him? That's Nan Su Huai, the dean of Lingshao College. He's the princess consort's master. It's said that he dotes on his disciple very much to the point of doting on her. Be careful not to let him hear these words. We'll get into trouble later. Someone disagreed. So what? Most of the people here today are here for the sake of the Yuntian Tower. Besides, even if they really heard it, do you think they'll make a scene with us here? For the sake of a Shangguan Yu? It's really not worth it. Nan Su slowly clenched his hands in his sleeves and glanced at the person who spoke. Shangguan Jing raised his eyes slightly and then quickly looked away. At this moment, accompanied by the music of the ceremony, the announcement was clearly heard: His Highness the Holy Sun has arrived. The princess consort has arrived. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1804. The ethereal hall soon fell silent. Everyone raised their heads and looked toward the entrance of the hall. A perfect couple was walking over hand in hand. In an instant, all the lights seemed to have gathered on the two of them. It was bright and dazzling. They clasped their hands and walked side by side towards the main hall step by step. There seemed to be an indescribable aura that shrouded the two of them, forming a small world that isolated them from the others. That small world could only contain the two of them. It couldn't contain anyone else. Shangguan Jing and the others were invigorated, and they subconsciously straightened their backs. 36 respected elder Ming also felt a myriad of emotions in his heart. The Holy Sun had been thinking about this matter for far too long. Now, he finally got what he wanted. He had never seen such an expression on the Holy Sun's face before. Joy, pride, and gentleness. There was also a myriad of emotions that he didn't conceal in the depths of his eyes. Everyone's gaze followed them, and there was only one person in his eyes. This scene was so beautiful that no one could bear to disturb it. Many of the people gathered in the hall had complicated expressions on their faces when they saw this scene. No one would have thought that the Holy Sun of the Yuntian Tower would really marry such a princess. Of course, many of them had interacted with Chu Luiyue before, so they didn't dare to underestimate her. All kinds of gazes fell on the two of them. Rong Xiu didn't mind, and Chu Luiyue didn't mind either. They held hands tightly, as if they would never separate. Finally, the two of them stood in the middle of the hall. Bow to the heavens and earth. The ceremonial official's voice was loud and clear. This voice reverberated clearly in the hall. Rong Xiao and Chu Luiyue turned around and bowed. Chu Luiyue didn't believe in the heavens or fate. However, after meeting Rong Xiao in this life, she would rather believe that this was the heavens taking pity on her. Even though they were separated by thousands of miles, he still came before her. Despite the disparity in their statuses, he had chosen her from the very beginning. Chu Luiyue's hand lightly scratched his palm. Rong Xiao held her hand even tighter. Second, bow to your parents. He turned around and bowed again. Chu Luiyue clearly saw Taizu's tightly clenched hands, as well as his father and father's slightly red eyes. In an instant, countless images flashed before his eyes. Imperial father smiled dotingly and praised her proudly. The fire in the Tianling royal family's ancestral hall, as well as the bone-piercing pain. When he woke up again and dragged his body back to the Chu clan, the first thing he saw was his father's figure rushing over, and his father's anxious greeting. For her, he had been tossed around many places and had gone through many trials and tribulations. Even if his clothes were tattered and he was covered in wounds, he still insisted on seeing her one more time. The nervous and perturbed look in his eyes after knowing her identity. When he heard her call him Daddy, he was willing to give up everything. And along the way, the Taizu had protected him countless times. Chu Luiyue's eyes became hot, and the tip of his nose became slightly sour. Actually, she had always been loved and protected. No matter how much pain she had experienced, there was still a family that would become her warm arms. Husband and wife, bow to each other. Chu Luiyue raised her gaze slightly and looked at Rong Xiao, looking into his deep, phoenix-like eyes. She saw her figure clearly reflected in them. She saw the gentleness and love in his eyes. Her red lips curved slightly and she smiled. To be able to marry your highness in this life, I have no regrets. Rong Xiao looked at her and smiled. He enunciated each word clearly. No, it should be said that to be able to marry you, Rong Xiao, is blessed by 3 lifetimes. Digression, there's no more in the morning everyone, go to bed early. There are probably more than 10 chapters during the day. Ahem, the chapters will drop around noon, 6 p.m., and 11 p.m. Please check. I heard that some people want me to update 50 chapters a day. Ahem, although I didn't manage to do it, but for the next 3 days, I'll update more than 10 chapters a day. Mwah. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1805. The two of them bowed to each other. The ceremony is complete. As the chanter's clear voice spread throughout the grand hall, fireworks were set off from the numerous mountain peaks outside of Duming Peak. Bright patterns bloomed in the sky. Even during the day, one could still see the sparkling radiance. 36 revered Elder Ming stroked his beard and sighed. The Yuntian Tower has not been so lively for a long time. Now that His Highness had finally gotten what he wanted, he was relieved. Rong Xiao held Chu Luiyue's hand tightly, and the two of them walked side by side toward the innermost part of the great hall. Over there was an honorable bench. It was obviously reserved for His Highness the Holy Sun and the princess consort. Crimson clouds with a red tail as thin as gauze silently streaked across the black jade floor. As she walked, the tassels on the phoenix coronet swayed gently. The woman's skin was as smooth as jade, and her eyes were like a painting. What was even rarer was that she exuded an indescribable aura of spirituality. Just by standing there, she already surpassed the thousands of sceneries in the world. Her thick and long eyelashes fluttered gently, and the light in her eyes was like a gust of wind, gently stirring the thousands of stars in the night sky. Rongxiu looked at her, his eyes deep. At this moment, he knew that everyone's eyes were focused on her. If it was in the past, he would definitely be unhappy. But today was different. This was their wedding. From now on, she was his princess consort. She was so dazzling and magnificent. She was his. The most moving treasure in the world was finally in his hands. The two of them sat down. Rongxiu reluctantly retracted his gaze from her and looked at the crowd in the great hall. After the ceremony, it was time for the banquet. But before the banquet began, there was still an extremely important process to go through. Gifts from the various families. After all, the Yuntian Tower was a first-rate family in the Divine Ruins world. It was famous and had a noble status. Now that it was the wedding of the powerful Holy Son, Rongxiu, of course, the various families had to prepare generous gifts to celebrate. The richness of this congratulatory gift was very important. On the one hand, it reflected the wealth and background of the person who gave the gift. On the other hand, it also showed that they were close to the Yuntian Tower. Today is Ai's wedding. Welcome, everyone. If there is any neglect, please forgive me. Rongxiu said as he raised his glass. Everyone raised their glasses as well. The hall was bustling with noise and excitement. Chu Luiyue sat next to Rongxiu. When he picked up the wine cup in his hand, he found that it had been replaced with green tea. She pursed her lips slightly and took a sip, hiding the smile in her eyes. Then, she put down her wine glass. Rongxiu tilted his head. Is it tasty? His gaze fell on her moist and full lips, and his eyes suddenly darkened. Chu Luiyue blinked and nodded. It was rare for her to be so obedient and a little naive. She was like a cat that had put away its sharp claws and turned into a soft ball, making people want to hold her in their arms. Rongxiu's fingers gently rubbed the wine cup twice and looked at the bright and warm sunlight outside. It was only noon. He drank the rest of the wine in one gulp. For the first time, he felt that time was so unbearable. The sect master of the celestial sect gives 2,000-year-old flying frost immortal pearls. The sect master of the purple phoenix sect gives a pair of night sea coral screens. The house master of the snowstorm house gives a green color great origin pill. The announcer's voice kept ringing. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows slightly. The Yuntian Tower's status in the world of divine ruins was indeed very high. Almost all the gifts given by the families were rare treasures. Ordinary families and clans had never seen them before, let alone give them away. Only the real big families and clans could have such confidence in foundation. Rongxiu listened at the side with a faint smile on his lips, and his eyes were relaxed. Everyone watched from below and sighed with emotion. It turned out that this god of slaughter could also show such a smile. And all of this was obviously because of the woman beside him. Time passed slowly. In the main hall, there was a low discussion. Those who have presented their gifts are all first-rate families in the world of divine ruins. It's obvious that they are all here because of the Holy Sun. But why hasn't the princess's people come out to present their gifts until now? Someone asked doubtfully. You don't know. The princess that the Holy Sun married is from outside the world of divine ruins. This time, for the wedding ceremony, they specially invited the princess's father and friends. But you know that kind of background, what good things can they bring? Someone laughed mockingly. When the families and sects in the world of divine ruins finish presenting their gifts, it should be their turn, right? But I guess, there's nothing to see. Why not? I'm looking forward to seeing what the relatives and friends of this princess, who has won the Holy Sun's favor and insisted on marrying no one else but her, will send. If they are all unpresentable, wouldn't the scene be exciting? Haha. Tisk tsk. You're really cunning. I like it. That scene, just thinking about it makes me feel good. When that time comes, I'm afraid Rong Xiu won't be able to hold back his face. Everyone laughed secretly. In the past few years, Rong Xiu had been famous in the world of divine ruins. Some people envied and respected him, while others were jealous and resentful. There were also some who wanted to marry Yuntian Tower, but were directly rejected by Rong Xiu. How could the women in their families not be better than this lowly Shengguanyu? Although everyone present was talking and laughing, many of them had their own plans in their hearts. There were more than one or two people who wanted to see a joke. If this princess was embarrassed today, it would be equivalent to the holy sun, Rong Xiu, losing face. Although many people lowered their voices, the ethereal hall was only so big, and most of the people present were top-notch experts. Who wouldn't be able to hear them? He had said that on purpose. On one hand, many of the clans present were first-rate clans, and they weren't inferior to Yuntian Tower. On the other hand, they felt that they were speaking the truth. If the truth was unpleasant to hear, how could they not be allowed to speak it? 36 respected Elder Ming frowned and looked at Rong Xiu. However, he saw that Rong Xiu's expression was normal, as though he didn't care about these words. He turned his gaze and looked at Chu Luiyue. Fine, this person is still smiling. 36 respected Elder Ming sighed in his heart. I really can't see through them. At this moment, Shengguan Jing suddenly spoke. Yue. This low and deep voice immediately attracted everyone's attention. The ethereal hall fell silent. Chu Luiyue looked over. Taizu. Shengguan Jing smiled. You and Rong Xiu have finally come to fruition today. Taizu is happy. Taizu is used to living a carefree life, and he hasn't saved anything for you over the years. He doesn't have anything else to give you. Take this. As he spoke, he took out a bronze universe ring from his hand. Chu Luiyue smiled like a flower. Anything given by Taizu is naturally the best. Taizu waved his hand and said casually. It's just 6 Supremacy God artifacts. What's so good about them? In the future, Taizu will personally forge a few more for you. At the very least, they have to be perfect. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 1806. Everyone in the ethereal hall gasped in astonishment. 6 Supremacy artifacts? Are you kidding me? One had to know that to most of the people present, obtaining an Emperor Divine artifact was already a great thing. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been a few clans who fell out with Lingxiao College over the Crimson Heaven Sword. They knew that Shengguan Jing was a Supremacy blacksmith, so it was within their expectations that he would give out Supremacy artifacts. However, they didn't expect Shengguan Jing to give out 6 Supremacy artifacts right off the bat. He even promised to give out a few more to make up for the 10 Supremacy artifacts. Were Supremacy artifacts as common as cabbages these days? Everyone was stunned. What they didn't know was that even though Shengguan Jing had always been a loner, he had never lost to other blacksmiths of the same level. Every time, not only would he forge a Supremacy artifact for himself, he would also win the treasures that the other party had painstakingly forged. Even if they were slightly inferior to Yangming's, they were still genuine venerable artifacts. Putting everything else aside, when it came to Supremacy artifacts, he was indeed rich. Furthermore, it was the kind of wealth that no one present could match up to. Seeing Shengguan Jing's casual attitude, many people felt as though they had been slapped in the face. They were just mocking the princess consort's relatives for not being able to give out anything valuable, but Shengguan Jing was the first to give out a trump card. Just these 6 Supremacy artifacts alone were already more valuable than most of the other Supremacy artifacts. Chu Luiyue was also a little surprised. She knew that Taizu should have some valuable artifacts, but she didn't expect Taizu to give out 6 Supremacy artifacts at once. After a brief moment of shock, Chu Luiyue took the artifacts with a smile. Thank you, Taizu. Shengwan Jing laughed heartily. It's good that you likes it. Hurry up and put it on. Chu Luiyue was wearing the holy ring that Rong Xiao gave her on her right hand. After pondering for a moment, she decided to put the one that Taizu gave her on her left hand. After trying it on, only her thumb fit. Looking at it now, it looked more like a thumb ring. Everyone's faces paled as they watched from below. At this moment, Shengwan Yu had a ring on his left hand that contained 6 venerable grade divine artifacts. The holy ring on his right hand symbolized the supreme status of the Yuntian Tower. Just this alone was enough to make many people look up to him. At this moment, Nan Su Huai burst into laughter. Senior Shengwan gave such a valuable gift right off the bat. It's really embarrassing. Everyone turned to look. What did the dean of Lingxiao College intend to give her? Chu Liuyue's eyes curved into crescents. Master has already given you many things. No matter what Master gives, you will like it. You brat. Nan Su Huai snorted with a smile. This was the truth. Previously when Yu was still in the academy, he had indeed helped her open many back doors. But now that it was her wedding, she naturally had to prepare a generous gift. Nan Su Huai took out 2 green jade tokens. Chu Liuyue's heart skipped a beat. She seemed to have thought of something as shock flashed in her eyes. Could it be, this green jade token symbolizes the status of an elder of Lingxiao College? Those who hold this token can enter and leave Lingxiao College at will and enjoy the treatment of an elder. As he spoke, he flicked his wrist. The 2 green jade tokens flew to Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiao. The 2 of them reached out to take the tokens. Chu Luiyue took a closer look and saw her name engraved at the bottom of the token. You. She turned her gaze and saw the word Xiao engraved on Rong Xiao's green jade token. Just inject your force into it and it will be activated, Nan Su Huai said with a smile. Chu Luiyue nodded. She held her breath and injected some force into the token. Buzz! The green jade token shone brightly. A number gradually appeared. Chu Luiyue opened her eyes wide. This is... Nan Su Huai saw her expression and smiled even more proudly. I have already deposited some points inside. This should be enough for the 2 of you to use for a while, right? There is such a bonus. It was a pleasant surprise. How could it only be used for a while? Chu Luiyue felt that even if she did whatever she wanted, she would not be able to spend it all in 10 years. Outsiders might not know what this number meant. But she knew. With these points, wouldn't she be able to pick the herbs in the Medicine Wind Valley as she wished? Wouldn't she be able to read the Xian'erei medical books in the library as she wished? The gift that her master had given her had truly hit the bottom of her heart. Chu Luiyue raised her head, her eyes shining brightly. Thank you, master. She suddenly felt that master was more amiable. Nan Su Huai raised his finger and shook it. Actually, these are not the most important things. Do you know the most important thing about this green jade token? Chu Luiyue was stunned. The green jade token was exclusive to the elders of the school. Master did not mean that she and Rong Xiao would become the elders of the school. He only meant to give them the green jade token. Then, did it mean something else? Nan Su Huai put one hand behind his back and raised his chin slightly. He still had a smile on his face, but there was a hint of dignity in his eyes that could not be disobeyed. The holder of the green jade token will receive the highest protection of the Lingxiao College. If anyone hurts you, the Lingxiao College will avenge you at all costs. Every word was sonorous and forceful. It was like a clap of thunder that exploded in everyone's ears in the main hall. Everyone looked at each other and suddenly understood something. Nan Su Huai was going to protect Sheng Wanyu to the end. What did he mean by that? Lingxiao College would not stand by and do nothing if someone were to offend them in the future. Rong Xiu was the holy son of the Yuntian Tower, so he did not need these things. It was obvious that these things were specially prepared for Sheng Wanyu. In the past, Nan Su Huai had always stood behind her and stood up for her as the master of Sheng Wanyu. In the future, the entire Lingxiao College would be her backing and trump card. Anyone who was afraid of Lingxiao College would have to be afraid of Sheng Wanyu in the future. How was this a gift? It was clearly a gift of power. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1807. Everyone in the ethereal hall was shocked before they fell into a long period of silence. How could this be? How could this be? As the school head, shouldn't Nan Suhuai do things impartially? How could he give away the entire Lingxiao College so openly just to support Shanghai Yu? Wouldn't the other elders and students of Lingxiao College object to this? Nan Suhuai's actions aren't too appropriate, right? Indeed. Even if Shanghai Yu is his disciple, he shouldn't dote on her like this. How would the other students in the academy think of this? I've heard that Nan Suhuai dotes on his disciple a lot, and it seems like he really lives up to his reputation, as expected of the school head. He's indeed generous. I wonder if Lingxiao College will be as peaceful as before in the future. All kinds of discussions sounded like a tidal wave. Even though some of them didn't say anything, it was clear that they weren't optimistic about this matter. After all, Lingxiao College wasn't a place where Nan Suhuai's family could dominate. Upon hearing those words, Nan Suhuai raised his eyebrows and smiled. You don't have to worry about this. He turned around, and even though he was smiling, his gaze was as sharp as a knife as it swept across those who spoke rudely. Everyone fell silent for a moment. However, Nan Suhuai's smile widened. Previously, when Lingxiao College was in danger, it was all thanks to you, who risked her life to turn the tide that the entire academy was saved. The verdant jade token had never been given to anyone who wasn't an elder. Today, we've made an exception and given it to Yu Er and her husband. This was a decision that all of the elders in the academy had agreed to. Why do you seem to be unhappy when our people don't have any objections? Who are you unhappy for? Why don't you think that anyone will care? Since it's a decision made by a person, it's not up to outsiders like you to comment on it. Even though Nan Suhuai didn't say those words out loud, his expression conveyed his thoughts very vividly. Many people felt embarrassed, and they quickly averted their gazes. However, Nan Suhuai didn't seem to be satisfied yet. One more thing, I'd like to remind you all that I, Nan Suhuai, have only accepted one disciple in my entire life. Everyone suddenly thought of something and looked at Nan Suhuai in disbelief. What was the meaning of this? Is he planning to pass the position of dean to Sheng Wanyu? Yes. If he didn't have this intention, why would he be so protective of Sheng Wanyu and even give them such a big gift? Furthermore, the other elders of Lingxiao College were all in favor of the green jade token. Could it be that they had already decided? Many people began to feel uneasy. If Sheng Wanyu really became the dean of Lingxiao College, the situation would be very different. Even if she didn't have any roots in the Divine Ruins world, Lingxiao College was an absolute colossus. If she really became the principal, then her position in the entire Divine Ruins world would be greatly improved. Admittedly, some of the first-rate families were rich in resources and had many experts. They could cultivate outstanding juniors on their own. They didn't need to send their children to the Yuntian Tower, and they didn't need to worry about their relationship with the Yuntian Tower. However, this was only a small portion of the families. Most of the families and clans still hoped that their juniors could enter Lingxiao College to cultivate and become experts. Then, didn't this mean that they would have to treat Sheng Wanyu with respect in the future? Many people had complicated expressions on their faces when they realized this. In fact, many of them didn't think highly of Sheng Guanyu in the past. Even if she was talented and powerful, she was too weak without the support of her family. It was as if she would fall if the wind blew. But now, in front of them was the Yuntian Tower, and behind them was the Lingxiao College. With these two forces joining forces, how could the others compete? The atmosphere in the main hall became strange. Many of those who were tempted to make a move had stopped thinking about it. Nan Su Hui revealed a satisfied expression. This was the effect he wanted. They wanted to bully you, Dream on. Both of you have given us such a big gift. Our gift is a little inferior. Sheng Guanyu said with a smile. Although he said that, his expression was magnanimous and natural, which made people feel as if they were bathing in the spring breeze. His temperament alone was better than many of the so-called nobles in the hall. Rong Xiao said with a smile. Father-in-law is the person closest to you, For you to travel such a long distance to come here, this is already the best gift for us. The word father-in-law was addressed to two people. Sheng Guanyu and Chu Ning. Some of the people in the hall began to ponder. Just by looking at Rong Xiao's attitude towards the two of them, one could tell that he valued you a lot. It was said that he had even invited the princess's friends and subordinates. It was rare to see someone so thoughtful. Sheng Guanyu took out a wooden box. The wooden box was rectangular and black. There was a faint pressure coming from it. It was obvious that there was a Xian formation seal on the outside. Chu Luiyue felt a familiar wave of energy and widened his eyes in surprise. Father, this is, open it and take a look. Sheng Guanyu urged with a smile. Chu Luiyue took the wooden box. The moment he held it in his hand, the seal on it was automatically removed. The energy inside it surged even more fiercely. Chu Luiyue paused for a moment. Click. The wooden box was opened. A dragon-headed scepter lay quietly inside. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. As expected. It was the Tianling scepter. Before I came here, the Tianling scepter flew out of the Langkuan Palace. I brought it with me. Sheng Guanyu explained. It belongs to you after all. Chu Luiyue suppressed the excitement in his heart and reached out to hold the Tianling scepter. Buzz! In an instant, the eyes of the dragon head on the scepter shone brightly. Almost instinctively, Chu Luiyue held her scepter and swung it down. Shwa! The sound of air being torn apart sounded. At the same time, an incomparably powerful aura descended upon the entire ethereal whole. A supremacy artifact. Everyone was once again thrown into disarray. Why was it a supremacy artifact? Could it be that the people of the Shengguan clan were all giving such gifts? Shengguan Jing laughed heartily. This little thing still likes to stick to you. Chu Luiyue could also sense that the energy coming from the Tianling scepter seemed to be stronger than before. She had never noticed that it was a supremacy artifact before. As if seeing through her thoughts, Shengguan Jing explained. This Tianling scepter is indeed a supremacy artifact that I forged a long time ago, but it's a little different from ordinary supremacy artifacts. The stronger the wielder is, the stronger the power it can unleash. In the past, your cultivation wasn't high enough, so the power you could sense and wield was limited. However, now that your cultivation has increased significantly, it's only natural that the power it wields is different. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1808. Chu Luiyue was amazed when she heard this. No wonder. She had already seen the venerable artifact, but she didn't know about it. Pfft. Someone suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed. The person beside him immediately frowned. Princess. We came here today to congratulate you. Isn't it inappropriate for you to target us like this? That person was unable to withstand the might of the heaven's rich scepter, and his chi and blood surged, causing him to spit out blood. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows in surprise. I just took out the Tianling scepter and he couldn't take it. I thought that those present today were all the top experts of the Divine Ruins world. So it turns out that I misunderstood. I'm sorry. As she spoke, she immediately took out a jade bottle and asked Enchanting to pass it to her. This is the rejuvenation pill. Please take it. Enchanting respectfully took the pill with both hands and handed it over. This time, not only did the person vomit blood, but even the person who spoke almost couldn't catch his breath. You're sorry. How are you sorry? That move just now was clearly intentional. Just as that person was about to say something, Rongxiu put down the wine cup in his hand. Clang! The sound was neither loud nor soft, but it suddenly felt like a huge rock pressing down on everyone's hearts. Rongxiu looked up slightly and glanced over. His eyes were extremely calm. Today is I and Yu's big day. We can't see blood. Enchanting, send him out. Yes. Enchanting looked at the person who vomited blood. Please. Being stared at by Enchanting, the man subconsciously trembled. At that moment, he couldn't say a single word. He forcefully swallowed the blood in his mouth, got up and left dejectedly. When he left, his footsteps were unsteady, as if he hadn't recovered yet. Everyone was silent for a moment. This couple really had a tacit understanding. They thought that after listening to what they said, they wouldn't really make a scene here today. Who would have known that Shang Wanyu would seek revenge for the smallest grievance? He had openly attacked her in front of so many people. But Rongxiu just let it be. It could only be said that the person who was beaten up was really unlucky. However, this act of killing the chicken to warn the monkey also caused everyone present to become vigilant. These two, he was not someone to be trifled with. Chu Luiyue raised his eyebrows. Only then did he put away the heaven-writ scepter, and his lips curled into an extremely faint arc. It's not bad. Time is short. Father doesn't have anything good to give you. A few days ago, I asked Senior Shengwan to help me refine a pendant. I'll give it to you. Chu Ning broke the silence in the hall and handed over a palm-sized jade box. This jade box was carried by Chu Ning himself. Back in Yao Qin, this jade box was considered excellent. However, in the eyes of these people today, it was extremely ordinary. In fact, it could even be said to be somewhat crude. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, a normal one. This was the grade that they should give out. Chu Luiyue didn't care about this. He took the jade box with both hands and opened it. A small green jade gourd was strung together with a red string. There was a faint trace of red inside the jade gourd. She picked up the small jade gourd. Countless gazes fell on it. Someone couldn't help but chuckle. What is this? It was fine if the jade box's material was inferior. After all, it was just a container to hold gifts. But this jade gourd. Its quality wasn't very good either. Looking at the color, it was a bit mottled. It was really ugly to the extreme. How could such a thing be given out? Didn't Shang Wanyu feel embarrassed? Chu Liuyue's expression was slightly serious. He stared at the jade gourd for a long time before asking, "Father, what's inside?" "That's Chu Ning's blood." Shang Wanjing suddenly spoke. Everyone didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Blood? So that Chu Ning asked Shang Wanjing for help and put his blood in that jade gourd. That's too old-fashioned. What's the point? Oh my God, even if he doesn't have anything to give, he shouldn't be so poor, right? Giving his own blood. What is this? That's right. Even if he borrowed a gift, it would be better than this, right? If I were Sheng Wanyu, I really wouldn't be able to accept this thing. Sounds of discussion gradually rose in the main hall. Chu Ning's hand tightened. This was indeed the best gift that he could give Su Yang. Sheng Wanjing glanced around and suddenly laughed. I didn't know when the god's blood of the indestructible divine body became so worthless. As soon as he finished speaking, the hall suddenly became dead silent. Some people still had disdainful smiles on their faces, but their eyes were filled with shock. It looked very strange and funny. There were also people who quickly looked at Chu Ning. Indestructible divine body. Chu Ning has the indestructible divine body. That's one of the rarest divine bodies in the world. He's only a stage 4 warrior. No, that's not right. Rumor has it that when he came to the Yuntian Tower half a month ago, he was only a stage 1 warrior. In such a short period of time, he actually broke through 3 stages in a row. The indestructible divine body has an extremely strong vitality. As long as there's a breath left, it can quickly recover and have a higher combat power. Chu Ning refined the god's blood and merged it into the jade gourd. Wear it and you can contact him at any time. If you encounter any trouble, just call him directly. If it's really dangerous, break the jade gourd, and the god's blood will help you recover. Although it could only be used once, it was equivalent to having half an extra life. Chu Ning's current realm is not high, and the power of the god's blood is also relatively thin. During this period of time, in order to refine this drop of blood, he suffered a lot. Chu Ning quickly shook his head. No, Senior Shengwan is exaggerating. Daddy doesn't have anything to give you. I just hope that you will be safe. Chu Liuyue's nose twitched, but his lips bloomed into a smile. Thank you, Daddy. He didn't have any rare treasures, only love and passion. He didn't hesitate to give it to her. She was so lucky. Daddy, your gift is no worse than anyone else's. Everyone was silent. Needless to say, the indestructible divine body's god's blood. They didn't even think about it. Sheng Wanyu directly had it. Who didn't want to have half an extra life? Even a seemingly lowly existence like Chu Ning could actually give away such a heaven-defying treasure. What kind of luck did Sheng Wanyu have? At this moment, an announcement came from outside. The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix Clan's clan leader, Yi Zhao, has arrived. Everyone turned around in shock. Yi Zhao. The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix Clan's clan leader. Why is he here? Under everyone's gaze, a tall and sturdy figure appeared outside the door. The moment he appeared, a powerful and vast aura was emitted from his body. It was so oppressive that everyone couldn't breathe. Everyone subconsciously held their breaths. Yi Zhao, to them, he was also a legendary figure. Someone muttered in a low voice. Yi Zhao actually came. Is he here to cause trouble for Sheng Wanyu? Digression, continue at 6 p.m. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1809. I've long heard that Sheng Wanyu contracted a Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix and was invited to Phoenix God Mountain some time ago. Later on, I don't know how he came out. Yi Zhao appearing now, could it really be because of that matter? It's most likely. The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan is so noble and arrogant. Yi Zhao has never interacted with the human race. Today, he's here personally, so it's definitely not simple. If the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan really wants to make a move on Sheng Wanyu, the Yuntian Tower won't be able to stop them, right? Not to mention the Yuntian Tower, none of the families present could be compared to the ancient Divine Beast clan's combat power. Many people in the hall stood up at the same time. Clan leader Yi Zhao, nice to meet you. We've heard a lot about you. I didn't expect to meet you today. Clan leader Yi Zhao, many of the people who still had some pride on their faces just now changed into eager and courteous smiles one after another. It was not difficult to hear the flattery in their words. Even though doing this would make him change too quickly and it would seem a little awkward, but who wasn't like this? Please. The person in front of them was the clan leader of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. He was the world's top expert who could reject a venerable god expert without hesitation. Who here could be compared to him? Usually, many people wanted to establish a relationship with the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, but unfortunately, they didn't have the connections. Now, Yi Zhao was in front of them. How could they not seize the opportunity? This was a world where the strong preyed on the weak. Everyone had a strong desire to be strong. If they could establish a relationship with Yi Zhao, so what if others said that they were flattering, solicitous, and trying to curry favor with him? However, Yi Zhao completely ignored these people's greetings. His expression was cold and solemn as he strode forward. His pace was very hurried, and cold wind was wrapped around him as he walked. Wherever he passed, his aura crushed. Many people felt a little embarrassed when they were ignored. But this kind of embarrassment was quickly dispelled by themselves. Wasn't Yi Zhao always like this? If he could greet anyone with a smile, that would be a miracle. This person is indeed the same as the rumors say, cold-faced and cold-hearted. Not only that. I heard that he's super strong and ruthless. All these years, the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan is almost his soul say. Not to mention us, even their own clan members don't dare to disobey him. Do you guys smell it? That murderous and cold aura on his body. He hadn't even made a move yet, but the overflowing pressure was already so terrifying. If he really wants to make a move, I'm afraid no one here. Sky Phoenix Sky Phoenix Crimson clan is Yi Zhao use it. Yi Zhao, Yi's clan. Under the gazes of everyone, Yi Zhao walked into the hall. Rong Xiu stood up first with a smile on his lips. Clan leader Yi Zhao, long time no see. How have you been? Everyone was stunned. Rong Xiu actually knows Yi Zhao. And judging from his tone, it seems like they have a good relationship. Could it be that he's pretending? Rong Xiu was powerful and famous in the Yuntian Tower, but they had never heard of him having any contact with the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Just as everyone was guessing, Yi Zhao nodded and said indifferently, "That's right. Everything is as usual." Many people looked at each other secretly. Does he really know Yi Zhao Yu? Yi Zhao turned and looked at Chu Luyue. Shengguan Yu. His voice was low and cold. Everyone's hearts were in their mouths. It's coming. It's about to start. This time, even if the Yuntian Tower and Lingxiao College joined forces, they wouldn't be able to protect her. Congratulations to the two of you on your wedding. I received the news a little late, so I came a little late. Am I late? Yi Zhao asked. Almost everyone's expression froze at this moment. What did Yi Zhao say? Not only did he not reprimand Shengguan Yu, he even congratulated them on their wedding. The air in the hall seemed to have stopped flowing. All the noise suddenly disappeared, leaving only a suffocating silence. Chu Luyue stood up, and her eyes curved. How can this be? You came at the right time. Why didn't I hear that you were coming? We didn't make any preparations. Sorry for the delay. Rong Xiu had already ordered someone to prepare a seat for him. His seat was naturally the innermost, closest to the two of them. Of course, he was the VIP of the VIPs. Even if he sat at the top, no one would have any objections. While everyone was still in a daze, they saw a little girl suddenly appear in front of Chu Luyue. The little girl looked to be no more than 3 or 4 years old. She was wearing a reddish-gold lotus leaf dress, and her hair was tied up in 2 round buns with golden bells. Her small face was fair and cute, and people couldn't help but reach out and pinch it. Chu Luiyue gave her a gentle push from behind. "Dumpling, go and greet Yi Zhao." Tuanzi was also very surprised. She rushed over with her chubby feet bare. "Grandpa clan leader." Her laughter was as clear as silver bells, and Yi Zhao's heart melted. He almost instinctively bent down, stretched out his arms, and caught Dumpling firmly. Then, he lifted her up. She was soft and small in his arms, and there was still a faint milky fragrance on her body. Her smile was bright, and her grape-like big eyes were sparkling. A doting smile finally appeared on Yi Zhao's face that had always been cold and solemn. "Dumpling, did you miss Grandpa clan leader?" Dumpling nodded vigorously. "Yes. Of course. Why didn't Grandpa clan leader say that he was coming?" Before Yi Zhao could say anything, a smiling voice came from outside the door. "Of course it's to give you a surprise." At the same time, a figure floated in. Tuanzi raised her head and looked over. Then she smiled even more happily. "Grandpa Yu." Everyone present felt as if they were struck by lightning. Yu. One of the 5 great elders of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, Yu. Yi Zhao wasn't enough, and now Yu was here too. What was he doing? Yu walked over with a smile and directly reached out to pinch Dumpling's perky nose. "Dumpling, did you miss Grandpa Yu?" Yes. Dumpling giggled. Elder Yu was satisfied. Yi Zhao glanced at him coldly. Elder Yu was fearless. "Dumpling, you don't know, but Grandpa clan leader misses you so much that he abandoned me on the road just now." Hee. Yi Zhao's eyebrows twitched. It seemed that some people were really ungrateful. "You're too useless." Their footsteps were so slow, and the wedding ceremony was about to end. Elder Yu coughed and touched his nose. It had been a long time since he was criticized like this. But who asked the other party to be the clan leader? Could he beat him? No, he couldn't. He could only endure it. So Grandpa clan leader misses me that much. Dumpling came to a realization. Then, she grabbed Yi Zhao's beard and leaned over to kiss his face. Dumpling also misses Grandpa clan leader a lot. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 18:10. Yi Zhao's body stiffened. He was so agitated that his hands were trembling. What had he not seen in his life? Even in the face of death, his heart wouldn't beat so quickly. But this feeling was wonderful. He felt as though his entire body was soaked in a hot spring. It was warm, comfortable, and smooth. In short, there was only one word to describe it: comfortable. At this moment, he even felt that even if Dumpling wanted the stars in the sky, he would find a way to pluck them and give them to her. As long as she was happy. Elder Yu was petrified as he watched from the side. He seemed to have assisted her. He was jealous. But at this moment, the crowd in the hall wasn't just jealous. They were about to go crazy. Everything that had happened in such a short period of time contained too much information. What did that little girl called Dumpling call Yi Zhao? Grandpa clan chief. Didn't that mean that she was the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix that had contracted with Shang Wanyu? No, what happened to the agreement that she was here to cause trouble? What happened to the agreement that the bloodline of the ancient divine beasts wasn't to be sullied? What happened to the agreement that the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix wouldn't interact with humans and draw a clear line between them? What was going on now? That little girl was clearly contracted with Shangguanyu. Otherwise, she wouldn't have suddenly appeared beside Shangguanyu. Didn't Yi Zhao care about that? And he was so affectionate toward her. Furthermore, didn't Crimson Gold Sky Phoenixes have to wait until they reached adulthood to take on a human form? That little girl clearly looked very young. Someone braced himself and asked. May I ask? Clan Chief Yi Zhao, this time, Yi Zhao finally turned his head and shot him a glance. I forgot to introduce her. This is Dumpling, the young master of our Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Dead silence. That short sentence was no different from a bolt of lightning that struck the ethereal hall. Everyone was stunned. Their expressions were fascinating. Young master, that little girl was the young master of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. No, that wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that the young master of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan was Shangguanyu's contracted mythological beast. What did this mean? No one knew what this meant. Because such a thing had never happened before. Just a moment ago, they were still thinking that Shangguanyu might be targeted by Yi Zhao because of the Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix. In the next second, Yi Zhao dropped such a bombshell. How could anyone accept this? No, how could there be such a person? It's one thing for you to form a contract with a divine beast, but it's an ancient divine beast. Putting aside the fact that he was an ancient divine beast, he was actually a young master. Normal people wouldn't even dare to dream like that. Chu Luiyue said with a smile. Patriarch Yi Zhao, Elder Yu, please take a seat. Then, she looked at the people in the hall, and her smile became even more amiable and brilliant. Why are you all in a daze? Take a seat. Today is the wedding day of Her Highness and I. We are very grateful that all of you took the trouble to come here. Everyone, please feel free to treat this place as your own home. Who's your own home? We don't have such a relationship with the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. For a moment, countless people were complaining in their hearts. However, Yi Zhao and Yi Yu were here, so they didn't dare to say a single word. It wasn't until Yi Zhao sat down with Dumpling that everyone sat down again one after another. His seat wasn't stable at all. There was only one thought left in most people's minds now. Offending Shangguanyu was equivalent to offending Dumpling. Offending Dumpling was equivalent to offending the entire Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. If they were blind and killed Shangguanyu, it would be equivalent to killing the young master of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. According to Yi Zhao's character, it wouldn't be enough to wipe out the entire clan 10 times. What the heck? Shangguanyu has such a background. Why didn't I hear anything about it before? That's right. Everyone thought that she offended the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Who knew that she had contracted their young master? This is really something. Who can afford to offend such a powerful backer? But why would Yi Zhao agree to this? This doesn't make sense. You want to know? Go and ask him yourself. Anyway, I don't want to know. What's the use of knowing? Let's think about whether we offended that person just now. Who the hell told me that Shangguanyu is of a lowly background and has no one to rely on? I'll kill him when I get back. If that's called not having a backer, then let's not live anymore. Yi Zhao's appearance and declaration of his position caused everyone's attitude to take a 180-degree turn. It couldn't be helped. A strong fist was the highest truth. At this moment, no one cared about why Yi Zhao was so open-minded about contracting Dumpling with Shangguanyu. He had already said that he was their young master and even came to support them. Wasn't that enough? Dumpling nestled in Yi Zhao's arms, beaming with joy. Seeing that she was fine, Zhao and Yi Yu were also relieved. In fact, a large part of the reason why they decided to come this time was because Dumpling said that they had gone to Divine Dragon Island. Even though Dumpling said that she was fine, they were still worried. After thinking about it, they still came. In addition, this way, Shangguan and Dumpling would have less trouble traveling in the Divine Ruins world in the future. Killing several birds with one stone, why not? Yi Zhao said, "Oh, right. By the way, our Crimson Gold Celestial Phoenix clan has also brought a small gift for your wedding." As he spoke, he nodded at Elder EU beside him. Elder EU stepped forward with a smile and handed over a jade bottle. This is the spring water condensed in the frost cave on Godly Phoenix Mountain. It's only produced once every 100 years, and it's extremely beneficial for cultivation. This is a small gift to show our respect. A trace of shock flashed across Chu Liyue's eyes. She knew about this item. Back then, that god-level expert had gone to Godly Phoenix Mountain to ask for this item. And at that time, he had only asked for a few drops. In the end, he hadn't even been able to enter Godly Phoenix Mountain, let alone obtain the spring water from the Frost Cave. She didn't expect that not only did Yi Zhao and the others come personally, but they also brought such a generous gift. Chu Liyue received it with both hands and thanked them solemnly. Everyone in the main hall revealed looks of envy. Some people were so lucky that they couldn't understand it. After today's event, even if they wanted to do anything in the future, they would have to think twice. Suddenly, another low and heroic laughter sounded out from afar. Ha ha ha. It's so lively here. Is this old man late? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1811. Someone else is coming. When everyone heard this voice, they all looked outside the door. Why does this wedding ceremony seem to be getting more and more lively? It's already so late. Who could it be? I don't know. In the world of Divine Ruins, basically everyone who has dealings with the Yuntian Tower is here, right? Many people were filled with guesses. Soon, that figure came from the horizon and appeared in front of the main hall. His speed was so fast that the person in charge of passing on the message outside didn't even have time to make a sound. The main hall fell silent. Everyone's gaze fell on the person who came. It was a man who looked to be in his 40s. He was tall and sturdy, and his face was angular. At this moment, he was walking inside with a warm smile on his face. Who is this? I don't know, but looking at his imposing manner, he doesn't seem to be an ordinary person. When did such a person appear in the world of Divine Ruins? Yi Zhao sat up straight and stared at the person who came. Rong Xiao and Chu Liyue stood up at the same time. Rong Xiao smiled. Senior Mao Jin, you're finally here. When the name Mao Jin was shouted out, everyone was stunned. After a moment, someone seemed to have thought of something and suddenly gasped. Mao Zhen. Could it be? Mao Zhen laughed. You also know that there have been too many things happening on the Divine Dragon Island recently, so I'm a little late. But don't worry, this old man didn't forget to bring this wedding gift. His voice was full of energy, and it echoed clearly in the entire main hall, falling into everyone's ears. When they heard Divine Dragon Island, almost everyone's expression changed. Wasn't that the Great Phoenix Dragon's territory? Then, they remembered that Rong Xiao had called him Senior Mao Jin. Isn't that the Great Phoenix Dragon's genius from 1,000 years ago? Mao Jin. Mao Zhen. How could it be him? Rumor has it that he's not crazy. That person didn't dare to say the rest of the words. Because Mao Jin had already heard the words and looked over. He still had a smile on his face, but when his gaze swept over, it carried a powerful pressure that made one's heart tremble. It seems that everyone is not very well informed. Mao Jin looked around and raised his eyebrows. Since everyone is here today, there are some things that I would like to tell you about. I'm Mao Zhen, and I'm also the new Great Phoenix Dragon's patriarch. In the future, when you meet again, please don't mistake me for someone else. Patriarch? Someone couldn't help but ask. Isn't the patriarch of the Great Phoenix Dragon's patriarch? Mao Zhen casually waved his hand and said with a faint smile. Mao Zhen. He killed and framed his own kind, he is a sinner of the Great Void Phoenix Dragon race. Now, he had been stripped of his dragon scales and imprisoned. Why? Do you want to meet him? The person who asked the question instantly turned pale. No. I was just casually asking. The other people's reactions were not much better than this person's. It was like a sudden clap of thunder. Mao Zhen, who was rumored to have died a long time ago, suddenly appeared and immediately became the clan leader. On the other hand, Mao Yang, who had been the clan leader for hundreds of years, became a sinner overnight and was even sentenced to death. In fact, they couldn't be blamed for not being informed. It was really too difficult to find out about the Great Phoenix Dragon's patriarch. The Divine Dragon Island's geographical location was special. Ordinary people didn't know where it was. In addition, the Great Phoenix Dragon's patriarch had always been arrogant. Without some means, the human race wouldn't know anything. Most importantly, Mao Zhen was indeed busy cleaning up the patriarch's patriarch and deliberately blocked the news. Outsiders had no way of knowing. However, since he had shown up today, he naturally had to make things clear. As he spoke, he retracted his gaze and waved his sleeve. A purple gold flowing light flew out. Rong Xiao raised his hand. The purple gold flowing light landed in his palm and turned into a palm-sized dragon scale. However, these dragon scales were different from ordinary dragon scales. There was a totem drawn on the surface of the scales with bright lines. Rong Xiao's eyes flickered. Chu Luiyue also sensed the astonishing aura on the dragon scale and couldn't help but widen her eyes slightly. Senior Mao Zhen, this is... this old man didn't think of what to give you previously. After all, there are many treasures in the Yuntian Tower. After thinking about it, this old man decided to give this red heart dragon scale to you. In the future, with this item, you will be my Divine Dragon Island's distinguished guests. You can come and go as you wish. If there is any danger, use this dragon scale as a signal. My Great Phoenix Dragon's patriarch will spare no effort to help. At this point, he paused and looked at Chu Luiyue with admiration. This girl is really very beautiful. Rong Xiao, you are very lucky. Rong Xiao's smile deepened. The corners of his eyes and brows seemed to relax a little. Yes. It was indeed his greatest fortune to be able to marry her. Mao Zhen's deep and powerful voice knocked heavily on everyone's heart. Some people were already in a daze. This is... Even the Great Phoenix Dragon's patriarch came to support Sheng Wanyu. When did they know each other? They seemed to be very close. If not for their strong friendship, why would Mao Zhen have such an attitude? Not only did he come to congratulate them personally, but he also gave them the red heart dragon scale. Thank you, Senior Mao Zhen. Please take a seat. Chu Luiyue said with a smile. Mao Zhen's seat was arranged long ago. When he sat down, he happened to sit right across from Yi Zhao. The two patriarchs of the primordial divine beasts looked at each other. In an instant, there seemed to be sparks flying everywhere. At this moment, everyone in the hall clearly felt that the air seemed to have frozen. Who didn't know that the relationship between the Great Phoenix Dragon and the Red Gold Heavenly Phoenix had always been rather subtle? The two sides never casually stepped into each other's territory. There was a clear boundary between them. However, they had always been competing with each other in the open and in the dark. Now that Yi Zhao and Mao Zhen met each other, there was a sense of tension. These two wouldn't fight on the spot, right? Just as everyone's hearts were filled with worry, Mao Jin was the first to laugh. "Brother Yi Zhao, how have you been?" His laugh broke the deadlock. Yi Zhao's face was expressionless as usual. "I haven't congratulated Brother Mao Jin on clearing your grievances and returning to the peak." Mao Jin glanced at Tuan Zi and sighed with emotion. "With Dumpling, Brother Yi Zhao is really enviable." These words made Yi Zhao very happy. It was useless to praise him, but as long as he praised Dumpling, his attitude would be much gentler. "Not at all. I have to thank Brother Mao Jin for taking care of her previously." Mao Jin laughed. "How was it me taking care of her? Dumpling has always been with her you. She has always been taking care of Dumpling." Hearing this, Yi Zhao's eyes were a little moved. He looked at Chu Luiyue and nodded gently. "Thank you." Chu Luiyue hurriedly refused and smiled. "You're too polite. I promised you to take good care of Dumpling. This is what I should do." The atmosphere on their side gradually became harmonious, leaving only the people in the hall with confused expressions. Why are they still reminiscing about the past? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 18:12. This scene was too stimulating. Before they could even enter the Divine Phoenix Mountain, Shanghai Yu had already contracted the young master of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Before they even knew that the clan leader of the Divine Dragon Island had changed, Shanghai Yu was already chatting happily with the new clan leader. What was even stranger was that these two clans could actually sit in the same room and chat so peacefully. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that they were giving face to Rong Xiu and Shanghai Yu. First, Yi Zhao came, which was already unbearable. Now, Mao Jin came too. This was simply too much. No backing. No background. Then what the F***ck is going on? Some people were already going crazy. I was just mocking Shanghai Yu. She must have heard everything. Regret. Really regret. Many people in the hall had ugly expressions on their faces. They were restless in their seats and wanted nothing more than to run away. This place. Staying for even a second longer was torture. Chu Luiyue calmly raised her wine cup, which was filled with the tea that Rong Xiu had just changed. Her thick and long eyelashes drooped slightly, hiding the surging waves in her eyes. Actually, how could there be so many rumors spreading? How could there be so many emotions being stirred up? It was simply because they themselves thought that way. These people from the aristocratic clans had been in their positions for a long time. All they could see was the small piece of land in front of them. And their views were often prejudiced. Just because she was born outside the Divine Ruins world, they looked down on her. No matter how outstanding she was, it still couldn't offset the obsession in the depths of their hearts. At this time, persuasion was useless. The most effective way was to give them a few slaps to wake them up. That's right. She indeed didn't have her own power in the Divine Ruins world. But this didn't mean that she was easy to bully. Whether it was the Yuntian Tower, Lingshao College, or the two ancient Divine Beast clans, they would all become her backing. From today onwards, she would let these people understand that she was not someone who would be bullied and humiliated. The banquet continued. However, for many of the people present, they had already lost their appetite. He had come here today to watch a joke, but who knew that his face would be slapped swollen in the end? However, he had to endure this slap. Whether it was the Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix or the Great Phoenix Dragon, they were not people they could afford to offend. Thus, those who were happy became happier, and those who were depressed became even more depressed. Rong Xiu and Chu Luiyue didn't care about this. In any case, he had already achieved his goal. Nothing else mattered. If you truly came to congratulate them, they would welcome you with open arms. If you came here with other intentions, then you can't blame me. Suddenly, a figure rushed into the main hall. Your Highness, Princess Consort, there are 2 guests. Rong Xiao narrowed his eyes slightly. Those who were supposed to come today were already here. Who else would appear? Furthermore, from the looks of it, the other party's identity was somewhat unusual. Who are you? Rong Xiao asked faintly. That person hurriedly said. They said, they are from the Nan family. As these words fell, many people subconsciously stopped what they were doing, looking surprised and doubtful. The Nan family. That Nan family. Rong Xiao's expression became a little colder. Chu Luiyue raised his eyebrows slightly, put down the wine glass, and raised the corner of his lips into an ambiguous smile. It seemed that they hadn't stopped yet. Hadn't they suffered enough from before? Rong Xiao leaned back, his eyes cold. Drive them out. Digression, 11:30 p.m. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 18:13. That person hesitated for a moment before speaking. Your Highness, the 2 of them said that they're here to deliver a congratulatory gift after hearing that you're celebrating a joyous occasion today. Rong Xiao glanced at him indifferently. The silent pressure caused that person's heart to tremble, and he swallowed the rest of his words. Yes. After saying those words, that person quickly left. Many people in the ethereal hall glanced at one another. The Nan clan. Why are they here? If I recall correctly, the Yuntian Tower doesn't have much interaction with them, right? Why are they here all of a sudden? However, it seems like the Yuntian Tower doesn't welcome them. The Nan clan has always been arrogant, so what's the meaning of this? And the Yuntian Tower doesn't seem to care about them at all. The Yuntian Tower has the Crimson Gold Celestial Phoenix and the Great Illusionary Dragon as their backing now. Who else can possibly catch their eye? You're right, in the world of God, there were many sects and clans, and the various powers were entangled with one another. It was common for the weak to rely on the strong. Without a doubt, the 2 primordial divine beast clans were the 2 thickest thighs in the world. And now, they were being embraced by the Shengguanyu alone. What else was there to say? This small interlude was quickly forgotten by everyone. Outside the barrier of the Yuntian Tower, Luo Yan's face was cold. Nan Yi stood behind him and shook his arm with an aggrieved expression. She really wanted to go in. Luo Yan turned around and patted her hand comfortingly. Then, he looked at the guard in charge of guarding the barrier. We're really here to congratulate you. The black-armored guard looked at Luo Yan coldly. His Highness' intentions are clear. The Yuntian Tower doesn't welcome you. Please leave quickly. If you continue to pester us, don't blame us for being impolite. Luo Yan's chest was burning with rage. He had never suffered such humiliation in all these years. Yet, he had been thwarted time and time again by the Rong Xiao and the Shengguanyu. However, this was the other party's territory, and it wouldn't do them any good if a fight broke out. Luo Yan took a deep breath and pulled Nan Yi away. Let's go. Nan Yi wanted to struggle again, but when she looked up and saw Luo Yan's angry face, she knew that he was really angry. She didn't dare to do anything else and could only follow him obediently. The 2 figures quickly disappeared. About an hour later, Luo Yan brought Nan Yi to a mountain peak. The forest on the mountain was lush. The sun was shining brightly, casting mottled shadows in the forest. There seemed to be the sound of a stream flowing in his ears. Everything was calm and peaceful. However, Nan Yi's mood wasn't soothed by this scenery. Along the way, she followed behind Luo Yan with her head lowered silently. Luo Yan only stopped when he reached a relatively flat area. As soon as he turned around, Nanny looked up and only then did he see the tears on her face. Luo Yan's heart instantly felt as if it had been pricked by something, and his voice softened a lot. I've already said that this method won't work. We've already made such a fuss with them before, so why would they still be in contact with us? Besides, today is their wedding day. If it were him, he would definitely make the same choice. Nanny had always been very smart. He didn't know why she was so persistent this time. She knew that there was a wall in front of her, but she still wanted to hit it hard. Nanny pursed her lips as tears kept falling. Ever since she couldn't speak, she didn't want to make any sound, including crying. It would only make her feel tormented and painful. Luo Yan patted her shoulder gently and sighed. I know you hate him. But you haven't recovered from your injuries yet. Even if you want to take revenge, you don't have the ability to do so, right? And, for some reason, the family head is obviously very afraid of Rongxiu. If we act rashly, I'm afraid that the Nan family will also. Nanny turned her head away. She didn't want to care about this. She only knew that her tongue had been cut off and she couldn't speak anymore. No one else could understand her pain, so how could they be in a position to comfort her? Seeing her like this, Luo Yan knew that it was useless to persuade her, so he didn't say anything. He had already brought her here according to her request, but he couldn't do anything more. She still needed to slowly digest this kind of thing herself. Nanny suddenly walked towards the middle of the mountain. Luo Yan frowned and immediately followed. Where are you going? Nanny didn't stop and just walked forward. Luo Yan wanted to stop her, but seeing that she still seemed to be angry, he knew that the only thing he could do now was to go along with her, so he could only follow her. The two of them walked forward in silence. About a quarter of an hour later, a black shadow suddenly flew past. A dangerous and cold aura was approaching rapidly. Luo Yan knew that something was wrong and immediately pulled Nanny back. Step back. But it was already too late. The black shadow approached quickly and turned into a black fog that swallowed Nanny. Luo Yan was shocked and immediately mobilized the force in his body to take action. However, at this moment, he was shocked to discover that his body seemed to be fixed by something and he couldn't move. Then, the black fog quickly spread over and strangled Luo Yan's neck. It was like a venomous snake slowly crawling around his neck, cold and sinister. Luo Yan desperately mobilized the force in his body, but he was still helpless. One had to know that he was a venerable god expert, and ordinary cultivators were no match for him. Even if a venerable god of the same level fought against him, it was impossible for him to be crushed like this. Just as countless thoughts flashed through Luo Yan's mind, the black fog had already started to spread around him and swallow him bit by bit. Perhaps because he was much stronger than Nanyi, the speed at which the black fog swallowed him was obviously much slower. But this couldn't go on. If he couldn't think of a way to escape, he was afraid that, boom. A powerful force suddenly erupted from Luo Yan's body. The violent force spread out in all directions, causing the black fog to disperse. Luo Yan was finally able to catch his breath. He immediately turned around and fled without hesitation. He used the fastest speed in his life. However, the black fog wasn't slow either. Before he could run far, Luo Yan felt a strong force pulling his ankle. He looked down, and his heart skipped a beat. The black fog had already wrapped around him again. This time, the power contained in the black fog seemed to have become stronger, causing Luo Yan's speed to become slower and slower. A strong sense of fear struck him. Luo Yan suddenly turned around. The black fog was like a monster that opened its bloody mouth and swallowed him. A strange blood-colored totem suddenly flashed in front of his eyes. Then, Luo Yan's vision turned black, he lost consciousness. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1814. The figures of Nan Yi and Luo Yan both disappeared into the forest. As for the dense and strange black mist, it gradually dissipated and vanished without a trace after swallowing the two of them. The forest was quiet. A breeze blew, blowing the mottled shadows of the trees. The stream gurgled, and the ornaments jingled. Everything had returned to how it was in the beginning. As if nothing had happened. A black swamp spread out endlessly. There were grayish-white reeds swaying in the wind. At a glance, the world was boundless. Nan Yifan stood at the edge of the swamp. If he walked any further, he would step into this dark and terrifying swamp. A cold and gloomy aura came from all directions, including him. There was also a faint smell of blood mixed with the smell of something rotten, which was nauseating. Nan Yifan frowned, suppressing the churning between his chest and abdomen. If it weren't for Yuxing, he wouldn't have come to this place, but now, there was no other way. The head of the Nan family, Nan Yifan, requests an audience with the sect master. He cupped his fists, his attitude respectful and polite. A cool breeze blew, and the reeds fluttered. But there was no response. Nan Yifan continued. The head of the Nan family, Nan Yifan, requests an audience with the sect master. There was silence all around. Nan Yifan hesitated for a moment, then lifted his clothes and knelt on the ground. The head of the Nan family, Nan Yifan, requests an audience with the sect master. In this empty world that seemed to have been abandoned by the world, Nan Yifan's voice sounded particularly lonely and helpless. But he seemed to have expected this situation. He just gritted his teeth and begged again and again. From day to night. From night to day. He knelt at the edge of the swamp and begged for a day and a night. When his voice became hoarse and he was almost unable to speak, the reeds in front of him finally began to sway violently. Pieces of white floss flew up and fell into the black swamp, and were quickly swallowed by the surging mud. Vaguely, white bones could be seen. Nan Yifan pretended not to see it. He just raised his head and stared straight ahead with bloodshot eyes. The surroundings seemed to have become quieter. Nan Yifan's heart seemed to be tightly gripped by something, and the blood in his body seemed to have stopped flowing at this moment. His throat was burning with pain, his body was stiff, and his mind was blank. But at this moment, he couldn't care less about that. Finally, a low and hoarse voice sounded. Nan Yifan. What are you doing here? Nan Yifan's pupils shrank. Even though the other party did not reveal himself, just hearing this voice was enough to make him excited. He said at once, "Sect leader, please save my son's life." That voice seemed to laugh. Nan Yuxing's Yuan meridian has been severed and he is now a cripple. Even if he forcefully recovers his Yuan meridian, he will only be able to recover 30% of his original talent. You don't have to spend so much effort. Nan Yifan instantly felt like he had fallen into an ice cave. How can it only recover 30%? Lord Sect Leader's divine abilities. If it was an ordinary person, it wouldn't be a problem. But the key point is, the one who did it this time was Rongxiu. He wanted your son to suffer a fate worse than death, so he used some special means. Even if it was me, it would take a lot of effort to completely deal with him. Nan Yifan's eyes lit up as if he had grasped onto the last straw. Lord Sect Leader still has a way. But before he could continue, the other party continued. But why don't you think about it? Nan Yuxing is worthy of me using my full strength. Nan Yifan's heart turned cold. Using my full strength, not to mention Nan Yuxing, even he was not worthy. But, if that was the case, wouldn't Nan Yuxing be finished? Nan Yuxing was bent on seeking death. Even if he recovered 30% of his talent, he would not be able to accept it. How could a prideful person like him accept becoming a cripple? He could not even accept becoming an ordinary person. These two situations were equally painful for people like him. So, it still doesn't work. Nan Yifan's expression was dejected and defeated. He had already abandoned all his dignity and pride to come here and ask for help. But, it still didn't work. When he thought of the scene of Nan Yuxing begging him to help, his heart couldn't help but tremble. In this world, there was probably no parent who could accept this. Rong Xiu, even I won't easily make a move against him. Your good son and daughter are very bold. How dare they provoke him again and again? They are really courting death. There was a hint of mockery in the voice. They can only blame themselves for this. Nan Yifan's face was pale and his cracked lips trembled violently. Of course, he knew all this. But, how could he have thought that Nan Yuxing and Yi would encounter Rong Xiu in the god-slaying tomb? Furthermore, for various reasons, he had even gotten into a fight with them. Even though he had tried his best to make up for it after he found out about this, it was obviously useless. Is there really no other way? Nan Yifan murmured in despair. Actually, it's not that there is no other way. It just depends on whether you are willing to do it or not. The voice said slowly. Nan Yifan suddenly raised his head. Please give me some pointers, sect leader. The other party seemed to smile again, but he did not directly answer the question. Instead, he changed the topic and asked him a question. If I remember correctly, your daughter's talent seems to be pretty good. Nan Yifan nodded in a daze. Yes. Yi's talent is also very outstanding. Originally, I had high hopes for her, but unfortunately, her tongue. Suddenly, he seemed to have realized something and his eyes widened. Wait. Sect leader, could it be? This time, the other party's laughter sounded very happy. You are very smart. They are related by blood, which is much more convenient. If your daughter's talent is transferred to your son will naturally recover. However, your daughter will become a complete cripple in the future. It's all up to you to decide. You can think about it carefully. These few words were as light as a feather, but they pressed on Nan Yifan's chest like a heavy stone. One was Yuxing, and the other was Yi. Both were his flesh and blood. How could he choose? Nan Yifan knelt there with his hands on the ground. Because of the force, his fingers were pale. I don't have much patience. The voice urged lazily. Finally, Nan Yifan closed his eyes. Change. I have let you down. But your big brother really can't be crippled like this. Nan Yifan's heart was in pain, and he was almost numb. The voice suddenly laughed. Forget it, you don't have to do this here. You have invested more energy and hope in Nan Yuxing. If he can't make it, your position as the head of the family will fall into someone else's hands sooner or later. So, you have to save Nan Yuxing. The choice is so simple. What's so difficult for you? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 18:15. These words were like an extremely sharp knife that ruthlessly pierced through Nan Yifan's last cover. He peeled off his skin and flesh, revealing his bloody insides. His body swayed, but his face turned even paler. However, even he had to admit that the other party was right. All these years, on the surface, he seemed to dote on Nan Yi more, but in reality, he had always placed his hopes of inheriting the heavy responsibility on Nan Yuxing. If Nan Yuxing died, all his hard work over the past few decades would be in vain. So now, he finally made this extremely difficult decision. Nan Yifan fell to the ground. All his strength seemed to have been sucked out by someone, and his entire body was shrouded in a layer of despair. You made a wise decision. The other party praised him. Nan Yifan gasped for breath and said weakly, "That's right. I want to go back first and talk to Yi. Why go through so much trouble?" The other party interrupted him. "I know you're a smart person, so I've already brought Nan Yi over." Nan Yifan suddenly looked up. A gust of wind blew past, and the reeds swayed. In the depths of the black swamp, a black fog wrapped around a person and flew over. Nan Yifan recognized at a glance that the person inside was his daughter, Nan Yi. Sect Master. This. After the shock, Nan Yifan couldn't help but feel a strong anger in his heart. Had he already set his sights on Yi? Don't be in a hurry to be angry. Your precious daughter has a lot of thoughts. When I found her, she wasn't in the Nan family, but on a mountain peak not far from the Yuntian Tower. At this time, she still thinks that she can rely on her own ability to take revenge. Nan Yifan pursed his lips tightly and didn't say anything. This was indeed something that Nan Yi would do. In the past, when she was a little arrogant and willful, he would at most criticize her a little and had never really taken it seriously. It was probably because of this that he raised her to be so naive and even to the point of stupidity. He looked at Nan Yi, who was trapped in the black fog. At this moment, her eyes were tightly shut, and she seemed to be still unconscious. As if she had sensed something, Nan Yi frowned. Her eyelashes fluttered slightly. He was about to wake up. "Do you still want to talk to her?" the voice asked. Nan Yifan clenched his fists so tightly that his bones creaked. Finally, he let go of his hand. No need. These two words seemed to have used up all of his strength. In the next second, the black fog quickly entered Nan Yi's body. Chi! In an instant, blood splattered everywhere. Nan Yifan's vision turned black, and he fainted. Yuntian Tower. That small setback did not attract the attention of the crowd. The appearance of Yi Zhao and Mao Jin caused a huge change in the atmosphere in the ethereal hall. Most people became a little more reserved. In fact, there were many people here who wanted to take the opportunity to get close to him and establish a relationship with him. After all, they usually didn't even have the chance to meet these two. Now that he had finally encountered one, he naturally did not want to waste this opportunity. However, this matter was easier said than done. There were simply too many people in the ethereal hall. Those who were able to appear here were basically all reputable figures in the Divine Ruins world. They knew very well that at this time, whoever stepped forward first would be the most eye-catching. Besides, even if they were willing to go all out and say a few words in front of everyone, they would still be faced with a very serious problem. Yi Zhao and Mao Jin were sitting opposite each other. Who should they approach first and who should they approach later? Although the atmosphere between the two sides was very harmonious, everyone was smart. They didn't really think that the Great Phoenix Dragon and the Crimson Gold Celestial Phoenix would be as close as a family from now on. If they were to curry favor with one first, they would inevitably offend the other. Both sides were evenly matched, and they could not afford to offend either of them. As such, everyone fell into a dilemma. In the end, no one moved. Many people looked at Chu Luyue enviously. They wondered what kind of method she used to establish a good relationship with these two factions at the same time. In a slightly remote corner of the hall, Xin Yi and the others were sitting together. They were also invited to this banquet. Originally, Chu Luyue had planned to arrange for them to sit at the front. After all, there were not many people on her side, and Xin Yi and the others had been with her for many years and had gone through life and death with her. In her heart, the 13U tribe was no less important than her family. No, it should be said that she had long regarded them as her family. She wanted to give them the best. However, this suggestion was rejected by Tsinyi. Chu Luiyue also asked for the reason, and Tsinyi only replied indifferently, "I don't like noise." Chu Luiyue understood their personalities and knew that they did not like to be too eye-catching. If they stayed at the back, they would probably be more comfortable. After thinking for a moment, she agreed. "Sigh, when will my dishes be ready?" Shifang stared at the various delicacies in front of him, but he had no appetite at all. He had a bitter look on his face. Wu Yao and Yu Jiu were eating very happily at the side and did not pay much attention to him. Little Hachi stopped eating after eating a little. Shifang was very touched. "Sister 8, you also think that my cooking is the best, right?" Little Hachi rested her chin on her hand and said lazily, "No. I'm on a diet." Shifang was speechless. Tsinyi's expression was as indifferent and distant as usual. He had never cared much about such trivial matters. 13 took a bite of the snack and couldn't help but lean closer. "Big brother, when do you plan to tell Master about that matter?" Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 18-16. Tsinyi glanced at him. "Eat your food properly." 13 shrunk his neck and said obediently. "Oh. Looks like Big Brother doesn't intend to save for the time being. However, Big Brother has always been a strategist, so he definitely has his own plans. It's not my place to worry." 13's gaze landed on the wine glass beside him. Inside, there was clear wine that glowed with light. He licked his lips, his eyes filled with curiosity. "Big brother, can I drink?" Tsinyi didn't turn around. "No." 13 had expected this outcome, but he still hesitated and struggled. "Then, just one mouthful." Tsinyi glanced at him. "If you beat me, I'll let you drink." 13 was instantly discouraged. Big brother said that every time. In the past, he didn't have any experience. Every time he felt that he had improved, he would think that he could win and excitedly run to compete with Big Brother. Then, he would return in defeat. Without exception. If he wanted to beat Big Brother, God knows how long it would take. Seeing his dejected expression, Shifang couldn't bear to see him like this. Big Brother, 13 is still a child. It's fine to let him drink just one mouthful. There are so many of us here. Little Hachi's beautiful eyes flickered as she gave Shifang a thumbs up. A true warrior. Not only did he dare to suggest to Big Brother, but he also dared to suggest letting 13 drink. Shifang's heart skipped a beat when she looked at him like this. Only then did he recall some tragic past and hurriedly try to salvage the situation. "No, no. What I mean is, if Big Brother thinks it's inappropriate, then forget it. Forget it. 13, if you really want to drink, how about I make rice wine for you?" 13 revealed a rare speechless expression. Little Hachi rolled her eyes again. Wu Yao finally stopped eating. Yu Jiu poked him. 13 is confused. Is Shifang also confused? Could it be that Shifang had become stupid from farming? How could he say that? Wu Yao swallowed the last mouthful of meat and sighed. This rice is really delicious. Unfortunately, he couldn't eat it today. Shifang. Tsinyi suddenly spoke. Shifang shuddered all over. "Hey, Big Brother. You are not allowed to eat for a month." Shifang's face instantly collapsed. "No, Big Brother, I really didn't mean that. Just listen casually, don't take it to heart. The vegetables I grew over there will be ready to eat in a few days." After all, he had been starving for a long time. How was he going to survive if this continued for another month? However, Yi did not care whether he lived or died. 13 revealed a guilty expression. 10th brother, I'm sorry, if it weren't for him, brother 10 wouldn't have been punished like this. For a moment, 13 felt wronged and guilty. He just wanted to give it a try. Master doesn't like you drinking, Yi suddenly said calmly. 13 was stunned. He raised his head to look at him in surprise. Really? He had never heard his master mention it before. Yi frowned. The last time you accidentally drank wine, master was worried for a few days. Yi's face immediately turned red. Although it had been a few years and he couldn't really remember what had happened at that time, it would be better if he didn't make his master worry. Big brother, I was wrong. 13 lowered his head and obediently admitted his mistake. Yi nodded in satisfaction. This matter was finally over. The rest of them looked at each other. TSK, little 13 was too pitiful. Master didn't even know that he drank, let alone whether he liked it or not. In terms of scheming, who could be Big Brother's match? Poor Eva. Yi looked up at Chu Luiyue, who was sitting at the head of the table. Digression, this is the last update on the 11th. It will be updated at noon on the 12th. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from AI Network. Chapter 18-17. She was dressed in a red wedding gown with a phoenix coronet on her head. Her features were as beautiful as a painting, and her skin was as fair as jade. All the light in the surroundings seemed to fall on her body. She was magnificent, nothing more than that. Yi smiled and retracted his gaze. The wedding banquet lasted for a very long time. Yi Zhao and Mao Zhen stayed for a while longer before taking their leave. They rarely interacted with humans, and it was already a rare occasion that they were willing to pay a visit to Rongxiu and Shengguanyu. Yi Zhao didn't like such a lively scene, but seeing that Dumpling was fine, he was relieved. In the end, he bade elder Yu farewell. Mao Zhen was in a better state. After being trapped in the coiling dragon pillar for 1,000 years, he had been very lonely. On top of that, he had been busy dealing with the problems that Mao Yang had left behind on Divine Dragon Island. It was rare for him to have some free time, so he decided to stay here for a while longer. It was only in the afternoon that he finally left. After the two of them left, the atmosphere in the ethereal hall finally returned to normal. Many people heaved a sigh of relief, but they couldn't help but feel a little regretful. It was rare for them to meet the two of them, but they didn't even get a chance to speak to them, let alone build a relationship with them. Obviously, they were here to support the two people who were getting married today. Faced with such a situation, what else could they do other than feel envious? Eventually, the crowd bade their farewells one after another, and it was only in the evening that all of the guests finally left. At night, there was a grand display of fireworks. Everyone gathered at the square in front of the ethereal hall. In the dark night sky, countless brilliant fireworks bloomed one after another. The entire Yuntian Tower was ablaze with lights, and it was immersed in a lively atmosphere. Chu Luiyue raised her head to look at this scene. Rongxiu turned to look at her. The fireworks illuminated her face, making it seem as clear as jade. It made her eyes seem as if they were filled with a myriad of stars. He held her hand tightly, and their fingers intertwined. Yue, what are you thinking about? Chu Luiyue turned to look at him. I'm thinking about you. Her red lips curled into a smile as her eyes curved into crescents. Husband, I'm thinking about you. Rongxiu's heartbeat stopped for a moment. There were no words more touching than this one sentence from her. A moment later, his eyes flashed and he moved closer. What did you say? Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows but refused to say anything. She just looked at him with a smile. Rong Xiu gently rubbed her hand with his slightly rough fingers and coaxed her. Say it again. This husband didn't hear it clearly. Chu Liu's smile deepened. He didn't hear her clearly and even said, husband. Seeing that she was unwilling, Rong Xiu's eyes deepened. After that, a wisp of a smile that carried deep meaning appeared on his handsome and devilish face. He took her hand and turned to leave. Qing, who was standing at the side, saw this and immediately stepped forward. Your Highness. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows and said calmly, I'm drunk, so I'm going back to rest. Chu Liu's face turned red. He didn't look drunk at all. Yes, Rong Xiu had drunk a lot before, but just now he was talking to her with clear eyes. In the blink of an eye, he said that he was drunk. Who would believe that? Qing wanted to ask more, but Umo pulled him from behind. He looked back and saw Umo frantically winking at him. What are you doing? Can't you tell? Qing immediately came back to his senses. A rare trace of embarrassment appeared on his iceberg-like face. He had really forgotten about it. A woman's laughter suddenly came from the side. It turns out that Lord Qing also has times when his brain doesn't work. Qing looked back and saw that it was a woman in a colorful dress who spoke. He remembered that this woman was one of the princess's subordinates. Hearing the other party's ridicule, he didn't take it seriously and quickly withdrew his gaze. He returned to his iceberg face. Little Hachi snorted coldly in her heart. She simply walked forward and waved her hand in front of his eyes. I'm talking to you. When she approached, a fragrant wind blew. Her jade-like arms swayed in front of his eyes, and the colorful strings and bells on her slender wrists jingled. Qing frowned and took half a step back. Miss Little Hachi, the mountain wind is cold at night. Remember to wear more clothes. Little Hachi was angered to death by his words. Was he mocking her clothes? She had always dressed like this and looked beautiful. What's wrong with that? Ordinary men would have their eyes glued to her when they saw her like this. Not many of them would not be captivated by her. This Qing was different. Not only did he ignore her problem, but he also ignored her as a person. I'm fine. You don't have to care. When Little Hachi was angry, she was still very beautiful and enchanting. Even if she glared, she still looked somewhat seductive. So this gaze was not lethal to Qing at all. He nodded. In that case, Qing will take his leave first. Little Hachi, have fun. With that, he really turned and left. Little Hachi was left alone in the wind, confused. Sister 8, this is the first time a man has pulled a long face at you, right? Shifang came over and glanced at Qing from afar with eyes full of admiration. As expected of His Highness the Holy Sun's confidant. You're clear-minded and have strong self-control. Sigh, Sister 8, bang. Lil 8 elbowed Shifang's face with the back of his hand. Shifang let out a muffled groan, almost dying here. No one will treat you as a mute if you don't speak. Little Hachi said this and floated away like a colorful cloud. Shifang's eyes were sore and his nose hurt. He was hit until tears welled up in his eyes. Sister 8, he was just saying that casually. Yujiu patted his shoulder sympathetically. Shifang, you should go back and farm. Eat more and talk less. Oh, right, I forgot that you can't eat for a month. TSK. How pitiful. Tsuni walked over slowly. His green robe fluttered in the wind. Go back and cultivate when you're done playing. Yes. Rong Xiu brought Chu Liyue back to the sacrificial god temple. The mountain wind blew on his face, and it took a lot of effort to blow away some of the heat. However, Chu Liyue's heart was still beating rapidly. Fortunately, not long after the fireworks started, Taizu and the others went back. Otherwise, this scene, Rongxiu, the sacrificial god temple was also decorated luxuriously because of the wedding. Glass palace lanterns hung from the ceiling, and a faint glow shone down, reflecting a brilliant light. "Greetings, Your Highness. Princess." The black-armored soldiers on guard bowed one after another. Chu Luiyue swallowed the rest of his words and obediently followed Rongxiu to the main hall of the sacrificial god temple. This was Rongxiu's residence. She had stayed here for a period of time before, so she was quite familiar with this place. However, she wasn't familiar with Rongxiu like this. The room had already been redecorated. The bed was covered with a dragon and phoenix quilt, and the gauze curtain hung down. The red candles burned brightly, and light and shadow intertwined. Everything seemed to be shrouded in a layer of indescribable ambiguity. Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment. Click. The door was locked. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1818. Chu Luiyue's heart suddenly jumped along with the candlelight. The sound of footsteps approached from behind, as if stepping on her heart. Until a pair of arms wrapped around her waist from behind. Rongxiu held her in his arms, gently rested his chin on her shoulder, and sighed. They could smell each other's breaths. There was indeed an intoxicating smell of alcohol on his body. Mixed with the faint cold fragrance, it seemed to create an irresistible fatal attraction. Chu Luiyue suddenly felt relieved. She reached out and overlapped Rongxiu's hand. Rongxiu's voice was deep and pleasant, and a little hoarse. "You are mine." Gentle, firm, and domineering. Chu Luiyue's heart seemed to be filled with something. She smiled gently and said, "Yes. I am yours, and you are mine." They had each other, and they belonged to each other. "I have waited for this day for a long time, Rongxiu said in a low voice. He spoke very slowly, as if he was really drunk, but also as if he was thinking about something, filled with longing for something from a long time ago. Chu Luiyue's heart suddenly softened. Say it again." Rongxiu was almost whispering in her ear. Therefore, every syllable, every breath, fell clearly into her ears and her heart. His hot breath fell on her ears and neck, and it was slightly itchy. She couldn't help but laugh and shrink her neck. Husband. Anyway, from now on, there will be plenty of opportunities to say it. Rongxiu suddenly bit her delicate earlobe. The tip of his tongue rolled gently, and it was boiling hot. Her voice suddenly stopped and turned into a soft murmur. Rongxiu hugged her tighter, and his voice was hoarse. The vague syllables scattered sporadically. "But today I really want to hear it." It was a sleepless night. Lingxiao College. It was already late at night, and a bright moon hung high in the sky. It flowed quietly like water. In the room, a person stood alone by the window. The moonlight elongated his shadow. I stood alone. His face was hidden behind the shadow of the carved window and could not be seen clearly. In the depths of his eyes, there was a thick coldness that could not be dissolved. Suddenly, the space behind him began to ripple. Then, a figure appeared in the room. It was Yiwenzhua. Damn it! Yiwenzhua could not help but curse as soon as he came out of the void. The indifference on Jun Zhiqing's face quickly faded. He raised his eyebrows slightly and turned to salute. "Master, you're back." That devilish and flirtatious face had already returned to its usual expression. Yiwenzhua did not notice this. He slammed the table angrily. This pair of master and disciple are really cunning. Earlier, when he noticed that Nan Su Huai had left, he secretly followed him. But not long after, Nan Su Hui seemed to have noticed his presence and used some tricks to shake him off. After that, he searched for a long time but could not find Nan Su Hui. In the end, he heard that Rong Xiao and Sheng Wanyu were getting married. As the master, Nan Su Hui personally went to congratulate them. What was more hateful was that the clan leaders of the Crimson Gold Celestial Phoenix and Great Phoenix Dragon were also there. From now on, the entire Divine Ruins world would know that they had these two great backers. It would be even more difficult to deal with them. That Sheng Wanyu, I don't know what tricks she used. Not only did she make Yi Zhao agree to continue the contract with the Crimson Gold Celestial Phoenix, but she also made Yi Zhao choose her as the young master. Yi Wenzhua knew very well that the Crimson Gold Celestial Phoenix had broken through from the Crimson Tail Phoenix, so the position of young master must have been added later. What were Yi Zhao and the elders of the Crimson Gold Celestial Phoenix clan thinking? Why would they choose a Crimson Gold Celestial Phoenix who had already contracted with a human to be the young master of their clan? Jun Juqing said indifferently. Her luck has always been good. Yi Wenzhua still could not accept this. With this relationship between Sheng Wanyu and Yi Zhao, it would be even more difficult for them to do anything in the future. Do you know that Nan Su Hui personally gave out 2 green jade tokens at their wedding? He even said that she's his only disciple. Yi Wenzhua gritted his teeth. He's obviously passing the position of dean to her. Jun Juqing was silent for a moment. In fact, they should have realized this earlier. Back then, Nan Su Hui did not hide his admiration and adoration for Chu Luiyue. Now that she had returned, her talent and strength were even greater than before. Naturally, Nan Su Hui valued her even more. Not to mention, she now had several backers. Not to mention Yi Wenzhua, even the major families and clans of the Yuntian Tower would not dare to do anything to her in the future. The room fell into silence. Yi Wenzhua took a few deep breaths and tried to calm himself down. Then, he suddenly thought of something and looked up at Jun Juqing. There was a hint of curiosity in his eyes. You know that they're getting married today, right? Jun Juqing nodded and seemed to chuckle. The Yuntian Tower sent out invitations. Other than those who had completely fallen out with them, the rest of the Yuntian Tower's influential figures were all invited. Who doesn't know about this now? Yi Wenzhua looked at him suspiciously. You don't have any thoughts? Although he had always told Jun Juqing not to fall in love with that girl, he was still his disciple after all. He could guess what was on his mind. Jun Juqing raised an eyebrow. This disciple does not dare to forget master's teachings. Besides, since they're already married, there's nothing to say. Yi Wenzhua stared at him for a long time before nodding in relief. It's good that you can think like that. There are many women in the world. Zhu Qing, as long as you can get to the top, what kind of woman can't you want? Jun Juqing smiled and lowered his eyes, hiding the emotions in his eyes. Yi Wenzhua asked again. I see that your aura seems to have strengthened a lot. Did you break through again? Jun Juqing nodded. Yi Wenzhua knocked on the table. That's good. Anyway, there's no need to continue staying in the academy. We'll go back tomorrow. What belongs to you, you still have to take it back. A dark light flashed in Jun Juqing's eyes as he responded. Yes. Sacrificial God Temple. It was still morning. White mountain mist surged back and forth, making the entire sacrificial God Temple seem like an illusion. Among them, a strong and agile huge white figure jumped a few times and headed toward the sacrificial God Temple. It was Xue Xue. It went to the window as usual, but found that the window was locked and there was a layer of enchantment. It couldn't enter at all. Xue Xue's face instantly collapsed, and it could only lie down under the window. It clenched its claws in boredom while waiting for the person inside to come out. In the room, under the red brocade quilt, 3,000 strands of black hair were spread out messily. Chu Luiyue opened her eyes in a daze. Who? Her voice was very hoarse, and because she was still sleepy, it was especially soft. Rong Xiao kissed her forehead and coaxed in a low voice, "No one. You didn't sleep well last night, so you should make up for it first." Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 18-19. Chu Luiyue wanted to beat up the culprit, but her body was sore and weak. She mumbled a few words and quickly fell asleep again. After coaxing her to sleep, Rong Xiao got up. He was casually wearing a snow-white inner shirt. It was loose and revealed a large portion of his marble-like chest. He clearly hadn't slept the whole night, but he was very energetic. There was even a hint of exuberance in his noble eyes. Clearly, the saint was in a good mood. He took a step and quickly walked to the window. Sensing his arrival, Shui immediately got up happily. Was he going to open the door? Was he going to let it in? Rong Xiao's cold voice sounded. Looks like you're very free. Then make a trip to the Red Moon Desert. Shui immediately felt as if it was struck by lightning. Red Moon Desert. Go again. No. It pounced on the wall and let out a low roar, hoping to awaken its master's last bit of conscience. Finally, Rong Xiao's voice sounded again. Double. Roar. Shui widened its eyes in horror, then turned and ran. No double, no double. I'll go right now, okay? Shui, who was in a panic, drew a white line in the air and then quickly disappeared. In the distance, Umo poked Yenqing. TSK. Did you see that? If you had followed them yesterday, you would have ended up like them. Yenqing's expression didn't change. Yes. When Chu Luiyue woke up again, it was already noon. Just as she moved, Rong Xiao walked over. You're up. Chu Luiyue nodded and stretched out her hand from under the blanket. Her jade-like slender arms were especially eye-catching under the red brocade quilt. Rong Xiao's eyes darkened, but he restrained himself and took a new set of clothes from the side. He bent down slightly, carefully and gently picked her up from the bed, and helped her put on her clothes. Even though her black hair hung down and covered most of her skin, a few red marks could still be faintly seen. Chu Luiyue's face was slightly red. She wanted to wear it herself, but she was half-hugged in someone's arms. She was sleepy and tired, so after struggling for a while, she gave up. She let him serve her from head to toe. After putting on her clothes, Rong Xiao poured another cup of tea and brought it to her mouth. Moisten my throat. Yesterday was really tiring for her. Chu Luiyue was half leaning against the headboard. Hearing this, her eyebrows twitched and she couldn't help but look up at him. These words, why did it feel so wrong? After taking a closer look, she began to feel indignant. Why was Rong Xiao so energetic when she was tormented half to death? Open your mouth. Rong Xiao seemed to know what she was thinking. He raised his eyebrows and pushed the teacup forward. White steam rose in spirals, enshrouding his noble and unparalleled eyes. Chu Luiyue was really thirsty, so she took his hand and took small sips. The temperature of the tea was just right. It was warm and moistened her throat. Chu Luiyue instantly felt much better. Good girl. Rong Xiao put the teacup back and asked. Do you still want to sleep? Chu Luiyue shook her head. She glanced outside. You've already slept until now. It was rare for her to feel embarrassed. Rong Xiao smiled and comforted her. Don't worry, there's no one in Yuntian Tower who needs you to bow to early in the morning. From now on, you're the princess consort, and naturally the most honorable. Logically speaking, after the wedding, they were supposed to visit the clan leader together. However, the clan leader had been in a coma and hadn't woken up yet, so this process was naturally skipped. Chu Luiyue then felt more at ease. Rong Xiao looked at her and couldn't help but kiss her lips. However, his movements were very restrained. He only skimmed the surface of the water and didn't go any further. Do you want to go out for a walk? Hearing his suggestion, Chu Luiyue was surprised for a moment. However, on second thought, she didn't seem to have taken a closer look at the Yuntian Tower before. Most of the time, she stayed at Duming Peak. She nodded. Okay. Chang'e Mountain. Cin Yi was reading. Wu Yao was still practicing boxing. Little Hachi was thinking about how to teach Yan Qing a lesson. Yu Jiu was still practicing his sword. Shi Fang was watering the vegetable garden. 13 ran away early in the morning and was nowhere to be seen. Crack! A crisp cracking sound was heard. Yu Jiu looked at the wooden sword in his hand gloomily. This was already the second sword he had used in the past month. He looked at Cin Yi. Big brother, can I change to another sword? This wooden sword is too boring. Cin Yi didn't even raise his head. No. As he spoke, he waved his sleeve and something flew out. Chi! Yu Jiu hurriedly caught it. Only then did he realize that it was another wooden sword. However, this wooden sword seemed to be tougher than the previous one. Yu Jiu looked at it for a while and finally couldn't help but ask. Big brother, how many wooden swords did you prepare? Cin Yi flipped a page. It's enough for you. Fine. There was no end to this. Yu Jiu resigned himself to fate and started again. Little Hachi suddenly stood up and hurriedly walked out. Shi Fang looked up and asked. Sister 8, where are you going? Little Hachi glanced at him. Shi Fang immediately felt a faint pain in his nose and hurriedly said, Farewell, Sister 8. I wish Sister 8 a triumphant return. Little Hachi curled her lips into a smile and walked away seductively. After Wu Yao finished practicing, he wiped the sweat off his face. Big brother, about what 13 asked yesterday. Have you already made a decision? Cin Yi looked up. Wu Yao coughed. What I mean is. It doesn't seem good to delay any longer. Cin Yi nodded and put away the book. I'll go look for Master. You guys stay here. After saying that, he lifted his foot and walked outside. Digression, I think. I have a cold. I'll continue to update at 6 p.m. and 11:30 p.m. If I say I'll update more than 10 times, I'll definitely update more than 10 times. As for the bridal chamber, cough cough, after a few days of extra chapters, I'll take a break and study it again. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1820. The Yuntian Tower was much larger than Chu Luiyue had expected. In addition to the main island where Upsetting Peak was located, there were many small islands scattered around, forming a circle of stars around the moon. All the important figures in the Yuntian Tower lived on the main island, while the weaker ones lived on the small islands. At the same time, these small islands were also the key to connecting the 28 divisions of the Yuntian Tower. The members of the 28 divisions often had to reach the small islands before they could enter the main island. In general, the Yuntian Tower's defenses were extremely strict, and one had to go through many checkpoints to enter. If there was no one to receive them, it would be very difficult for outsiders to get here. Is the clan leader at Upsetting Peak now? Chu Luiyue asked. Rong Xiao nodded. The side hall behind the sacrificial god temple is guarded by someone. Then, did you find out how he fell unconscious? Obviously, it was impossible for such a top-notch expert to have fainted for no reason. She only remembered that Yan Qing had come to the academy to ask Rongxiu to go back, saying that the clan leader had fallen unconscious and that the situation was urgent. When she saw Rongxiu again, she did not have the time to ask about this. It was not until Rongxiu mentioned it that she remembered this matter. At that moment, Rongxiu briefly told Chu Luiyue the ins and outs of this matter, as well as the situation that day. That's about it. Although we know who did it, we have no way to solve it in such a short time. Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. So, the Black Demon Cave has been targeting you since a few years ago. Otherwise, they would not have put in so much effort to plant spies. Rongxiu smiled as a tacit admission. Does it have anything to do with me? Chu Luiyue asked tentatively. She knew that the Black Demon Cave had been targeting her all this time. As for the reason, it was naturally that zither score. But they did not seem to have a reason to target Rongxiu. The biggest possibility was that it had something to do with her. Rongxiu pinched her ear. Actually, it's nothing much. It's just that after you left, I personally paid a visit to the Black Demon Cave. Chu Luiyue's eyelids twitched. That didn't sound like anything good. Is this the reason why the Black Demon Cave has been in seclusion for the past few years? Rongxiu pondered for a while. Half and half. At that time, I only seriously injured Imo Shiqian and took the lives of a few of his men, but nothing more. With their foundation, there was absolutely no need for them to go to such an extent. Now, it seemed that this was a choice they had made long ago. Chu Luiyue's mouth twitched. Seriously injuring their sect leader and killing several of their trusted subordinates. That was the Black Demon Cave. Compared to the other first-rate families, they were not inferior in any way. Rongxiu spoke of such a shocking achievement in such a relaxed manner, and even disdained it. It was really, no wonder the people of the Black Demon Cave hated both of them now. This could be considered a deep hatred, and no one would easily let it go. But, a few years ago, I remember that you were only an exalted god at that time. How did you win? Chu Luiyue was even more puzzled about this point. To be precise, she never knew Rongxiu's true strength. He seemed to be, always able to erupt with combat power that was higher than his own realm. Rongxiu's expression changed slightly, and he raised his eyebrows and smiled. Actually, it was a coincidence. When I went, they seemed to be busy preparing something. Whether it was Imo Shiqian or his subordinates, their strength was limited to a certain extent, and they couldn't fully exert it. So... He paused. You should have heard that the cultivation method they cultivate is very strange. Although it can quickly improve one's realm and strength, it often brings about a lot of problems. Chu Luiyue nodded in understanding. She had indeed heard about this long ago. It was also because of this that the Black Demon Cave had always been disliked by many families and clans in the world of divine ruins. They thought that their cultivation method was evil and went against the heavens. However, there were countless cultivators in this world who wanted to take shortcuts. So over the years, there had been a continuous stream of people joining the Black Demon Cave. This also caused their forces to always be very stable and difficult to be destroyed easily. In addition, in these years, the Black Demon Cave had taken the initiative to hide from the world, and everything was peaceful, so everyone gradually ignored them. But for Chu Luiyue, she always had to be vigilant. The Black Demon Cave wanted her Guqin score. They had done so in the past, and now, their desire was probably even stronger. According to Senior Ah Jing, his Guqin score had been divided into 3 parts, and now she had 2 of them. Only the last part was missing to complete it. Of course, the people of the Black Demon Cave would not give up. Do you know where they are now? Chu Luiyue asked. For some reason, she felt that Rongxiu should know something. I can only roughly determine their location. As for their specific location, I really don't know. Rongxiu spread his hands and smiled frankly. However, there is one person who is close to them. If he can personally go, it won't be difficult to find them. Who? Chu Luiyue was rather curious. Rongxiu looked at her steadily. Senior Diwu. Senior Diwu was, of course, Diwu Zhangze. Chu Luiyue was very surprised. She had thought of many possibilities, but this was the only one she had not expected. How could it be? Senior Diwu and the others have been trapped in the Red Moon Desert. Other than Debao, he and Senior Lan Shao can't even leave the Great Desolate Swamp. How could, and the reason why Debao could leave was because he had reconstructed his divine body. Rongxiu paused for a moment and said, Senior Diwu is indeed related to the Black Demon Cave. Chu Luiyue was stunned for a while. She had indeed never heard them mention this before, Master. At this moment, a familiar voice sounded. Chu Luiyue turned around. Cini, why are you here? Cini cupped his hands and bowed to the two of them. Then, he said, this subordinate has something to report to you. Chu Luiyue was a little puzzled. At this time, what did Cini want to say to her? If it was something important, he would have said it earlier. If it wasn't important, he wouldn't have come to report it at all. Rongxiu smiled. Then you guys chat first. I'll go see the chief. He had always been absolutely respectful to Chu Luiyue. Cin Yi was her subordinate. Even if they were in the Yuntian Tower, he would not interfere with her matters. Chu Luiyue's heart warmed as she nodded. Rongxiu moved and quickly left. Only Chu Luiyue and Cin Yi were left here. Chu Luiyue went straight to the point. Cin Yi, what happened? Cin Yi's expression was calm as an extremely faint light flashed across his narrow and indifferent eyes. Master, Sanson sent a message back some time ago saying that he wants to invite you back to Peach Blossom Cove. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1821. The Peach Blossom Cove was the place where Chu Luiyue had first met Rongxiu. It was an extremely special place. Even though it was part of the Divine Ruins world, the power of the Gate Realm was weak and the space was unstable. It would be destroyed by the spatial turbulence from time to time, and if one was not careful, they would lose their lives. It was extremely dangerous. Hence, there was no aristocratic family guarding that place. After all, it was more important to protect one's own life first. If one had to face the danger of death at all times and could not obtain any benefits, what was the point of going there? The Peach Blossom Cove was such a place. There were no heavenly treasures or earthly treasures there, nor were there any exceptional opportunities. There were only undulating mountain ranges and large patches of peach blossom forests. For some reason, the peach blossoms in the Peach Blossom Cove did not bloom or wither according to the season. Furthermore, they bloomed for a long time, and sometimes, they would bloom for several years. Because of this, the world gave it a beautiful name, Peach Blossom Cove. However, the Peach Blossom Cove was not deserted. On the contrary, there were always many people there. This was because many people who came from outside the Divine Ruins world would choose to go to the Peach Blossom Cove when they had no other way to pass through the Gate Realm. Compared to other places, the Peach Blossom Cove had almost no barriers and was very easy to enter. Of course, if one made this decision, it did not mean that cultivators would be able to enter the Divine Ruins world smoothly. The Peach Blossom Cove was filled with danger. Of those who entered the Peach Blossom Cove, there was only a 1% chance of successfully walking out and officially becoming a person of the Divine Ruins world. However, even so, there were still waves of people who tried to enter. Furthermore, to the people of the Divine Ruins world, the Peach Blossom Cove was an absolute zone that no one was in charge of. It was very suitable for those who had nowhere else to go. There was abundant heaven and earth energy there, and logically speaking, it was very suitable for cultivation. However, because the space was unstable and no one was able to find a solution to this problem, the Peach Blossom Cove was gradually abandoned. In the Divine Ruins world, all the aristocratic families and clans that were able to develop needed a stable and powerful place to cultivate. The Peach Blossom Cove obviously did not meet this requirement. In short, the Peach Blossom Cove was very chaotic and dangerous. It was definitely a place where crooks mixed in with the honest folk. After Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiao left that place, they had never returned. Why did Sanson go there? Chu Luiyue was extremely shocked. Why didn't you mention this before? Cini chuckled. This is his own choice. I advised him once. But you also know his temperament. For the past few years, he had spent most of his time in Peach Blossom Cove. From time to time, he would send letters back. Generally speaking, he lived a good life, so I let him be. I didn't mention it to you before because it happened to be your wedding. I thought it would be the same if I told you after your wedding. Besides, this matter is actually not that important. As for the specifics, you'll know when you read the letter. He took out a letter from his bosom and handed it over. It was a very thick letter. Chu Luiyue took the letter, opened it, and shook out several pieces of paper. At a cursory glance, it was filled with small, densely packed words. Chu Luiyue had a headache when he saw this. He couldn't help but say, "It's been so many years. Why hasn't he changed his nagging habit?" She had a unique way of communicating with the 13U clan and with each other. Generally speaking, he didn't write letters. Even if he really wanted to write, a few sentences would be enough. Only Sanson liked to write letters. He would write about everything, big and small. His letters were never less than 5 pieces of paper. Cini smiled. He's always been like this. You know that. Chu Luiyue tidied up the letter and read it carefully. This was indeed Sanson's handwriting. As she read on, Chu Luiyue's expression changed, and she gradually became serious and serious. When she saw the last piece of paper, she finally gasped. This. What did Sanson do in Peach Blossom Cove? Cini raised his chin and smiled. Master, you personally taught Sanson how to calculate accounts. Can't you tell what he's doing? Of course, Chu Luiyue could tell. The first half of the letter was very normal. It explained what he had eaten and drunk in the past month, how he missed Master and the 13U clan very much, etc. But towards the end, it was a string of numbers. Chu Luiyue read it a second time in disbelief, only to discover that it was an account book. Sanson had actually opened a shop in Peach Blossom Cove, and this letter recorded the income and profits of the shop. Looking at the last part of the profit and the shocking numbers, Chu Luiyue's mind went blank for a moment. Did he open a shop or rob someone? Chu Luiyue could be considered a rich person now. She first received a lot of money from her ancestors, and then Rong Xiao sent her a universe ring. Her current net worth was considered pretty good in the entire Divine Ruins world. To be able to make her so shocked, it could be seen how terrifying the numbers on the letter were. The most infuriating thing was that Sanson seemed to know that Cini and the others would be coming to Yuntian Tower soon to attend her wedding ceremony. He also knew that Cini would show her this letter, so he specially wrote a paragraph for her at the end. The general meaning was that Peach Blossom Cove was too far away from Yuntian Tower, and he really couldn't get there in such a short period of time. In addition, the shop's business hasn't been very good recently, and he didn't earn much this month. He felt very guilty and planned to work harder during this period of time to make more profits. Finally, he invited her to go over and inspect it to show his determination to work hard. Looking at the last few sentences, Chu Liyue's eyelids twitched violently. This was still considered little. This was still considered as business not doing very well. What had Sanson experienced in the past few years in Peach Blossom Cove? Sanson said that since you've already decided to stay in the Divine Ruins world, you should buy some properties. He has already picked a few places and asked you to choose. Of course, if you fancy anything else, it's up to you. Tini lowered his head slightly with a respectful attitude. Chu Liyue held her forehead and did not speak for a long time. She had to slow down. The feeling of being hit by money made her feel a little dizzy. Digression, I really have a cold, so I'm writing slowly. But I'll continue to update today until 10 p.m. So it's better for everyone to read it together later. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1822. Sanson's talent as a martial artist was very good, but he didn't care much about cultivation. Even if he had a whip behind him, he wasn't willing to sit there and cultivate. He liked doing business. To be precise, he liked to earn money and save money. When the other members of the 13 UU were cultivating, he was the only one holding an abacus and strolling around the streets and alleys of the Imperial capital. At first, Chu Liyue wanted to save him and pull him back on the right path, but later on, she saw that it was useless, so she gave up. Moreover, she had handed over many of her businesses to Sanson to manage. But that was a few years ago in Tianling. Sanson was shrewd and had his own philosophy of life. No matter who he was with, he could become friends with them. Therefore, when the 13 UU scattered and went into exile, Chu Liyue was very worried about the others, but she was very assured about Sanson. Even if he was in a desperate situation, he would always have a way to turn the situation around. It was also because of this that Chu Liyue didn't ask about Sanson's situation in detail after settling down a little. In the end, she didn't expect that Sanson would give her such a big surprise. Looking at the letter in her hand, Chu Liyue fell into deep thought. She knew very well what Tini and the others were thinking. The so-called purchase of businesses was just a euphemism. Their real goal was to establish a force that truly belonged to them in the Divine Ruins world. This was also what Chu Liyue had been thinking about all this time. Otherwise, she wouldn't have roped in Lin Qifei so early on. Marrying Rong Xiao and becoming the princess consort of the Yuntian Tower was naturally very good. However, such prosperity and stability were built on someone else's territory. Let's talk about the simplest problem. She could stay in the Yuntian Tower, but what about the others? Taizu, Imperial father, the 13 UU, these people were the closest to her. They could always stay by her side, but there seemed to be no reason for them to stay in the Yuntian Tower. If she really wanted to gain a foothold in the Divine Ruins world, it was absolutely necessary to have her own power. She could still clearly remember the conversation she had overheard at the foot of Duming Peak. Actually, those people weren't the only ones who thought this way. After the wedding, those discussions disappeared. However, that was because she had Rong Xiao, her master, and more importantly, Yi Zhao and Mao Jin to support her. It wasn't because of herself. It was true that the current her was more talented than most cultivators, and she was also more capable of fighting. She had a bright future. However, in the Yuntian Tower, the UUU. Unless you can be the one standing at the top. But the UUU, the UUS, the UU. Taizu the Taizu, S Taizu, Teat. However, even now, he still didn't have the upper hand against those aristocratic families and clans. Teat S. T. Tini stood with his hands by his side, quietly waiting. After a while, Chu Luiyue put the letter away. Inform the 13 you sect to head to Peach Blossom Cove together in 3 days. When Chu Luiyue returned to the sacrificial god temple, Rong Xiao was already waiting in the room. It was already evening, and the light of the setting sun poured in through the window. Rong Xiao was reclining on a rattan chair, holding a book in his hand. The warm orange light fell on his snow-white brocade robes, shining brilliantly. Hearing footsteps, he looked up and his thin lips curled. "You're back." Chu Luiyue leaned on the door frame and looked at him. Suddenly, a strange feeling arose in her heart. She had never felt this way before. When she stepped over the threshold, someone was already waiting in the room. When they saw her, they would smile and say, "You're back." It was as if the wind, rain, thunder, and snow outside were easily blocked by this sentence. For the first time, she realized that she was married to Rong Xiao. From now on, they had one thing in common: home. Seeing that she didn't move, Rong Xiao put down the book in his hand and walked over. "What's wrong? What are you thinking about that made you so lost in thought?" Chu Luiyue shook her head and walked over to hold his hand, smiling slightly. "I was thinking that it would have been better if I had married you earlier." Rong Xiao raised his eyebrows, obviously pleased by this sentence. "How's the chief?" Chu Luiyue asked as she walked in. "Still the same. He has no intention of waking up, and has been relying on pills to prolong his life." Rong Xiao's tone was calm. This was also within his expectations. Chu Luiyue nodded. Rong Xiao and Bailey Jun didn't have a good relationship, so there was no need for him to care too much. Besides, judging from the things that happened to Bailey Jun before, his coma might not be a bad thing. Sometimes, living with a clear mind was a very painful thing. Chu Luiyue walked to the rattan chair and sat down. This rattan chair was very wide, and there was no problem for it to accommodate 2 people. Rong Xiao took the opportunity to lie down next to her. The 2 of them stayed together in silence. There was no need for them to speak, but they could already feel each other's feelings. Chu Luiyue snuggled into his arms and then looked up at him. "Rong Xiao, I want to go to Peach Blossom Dock in a few days." Rong Xiao pushed the strands of hair in front of her forehead away and kissed her brows. "Oh. Why do you suddenly think of this?" Chu Luiyue told him about Sansan and her plans. Although the situation in Peach Blossom Dock is complicated, since Sansan wrote a letter, she should be somewhat prepared. Generally speaking, if a couple had just gotten married and one of them proposed to go out and establish his own power, it would inevitably cause the other party to be dissatisfied. But Chu Luiyue didn't have this concern. She had nothing to hide from Rong Xiao. She trusted Rong Xiao and believed that Rong Xiao would understand her thoughts. Sure enough, after hearing this, Rong Xiao nodded. "Okay. I'll go with you." Chu Luiyue moved closer and smiled slyly. "Your Highness, aren't you worried that I'll establish my own power?" Rong Xiao suddenly laughed softly, and his chest shook. He held her face in his hands and kissed her lips. His voice was languid and lazy. "If you establish your own power, I'll take the initiative to marry into your family." What's wrong with that? He wasn't even afraid of death, let alone other things. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.